Welcome to PENSARE Basketball. We are here. It is free agency. Have you checked up on Bobby Webster? Have you checked up on Dan Tolzman? Where are they at? The Toronto Raptors were never going to be a huge player in free agency because of how they've structured their cap sheet. Obviously, this is the season that Scotty Barnes' big extension kicks in, and add to that, this is also the season that Brandon Ingram's salary kicks in, $40 million, almost 85 between the two. And if you haven't noticed, if you've been living under a rock, the Toronto Raptors are kind of expensive, quite expensive, so expensive that, and we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff today. We're gonna talk about the Raptors cap sheet. We're gonna talk about what the Raptors can do to maybe navigate the mess that they found themselves in, how they got themselves in this mess, which will be probably a very interesting conversation. And yeah, we got to talk about what's happening around the league because, per my money, the Atlanta Hawks are killing it, signing Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think the Denver Nuggets are doing a great job finally unloading the contract of Michael Porter Jr. to the Brooklyn Nets, who had ample cap space. The CBA is kind of complicated, so complicated that even on 2 readings, I had to do a 3rd reading. So it's not super easy to figure out what apron restrictions are, what being hard capped at the second restriction is, what the cost of doing business as a second apron team will be potentially. So I think the Houston Rockets, the San Antonio Spurs, the Dallas Mavericks, the Atlanta Hawks, so far at least in terms of the offseason, are killing it. And there are a couple teams that aren't killing it in the offseason. One would be the Pelicans, who just signed Kevon Looney. So we'll talk about all those deals. But first and foremost, where are my beloved Toronto Raptors? What's up? Where are they supposed to be? What's going on with this team? And why have they not made any moves? Okay, so first and foremost, this one's from Bobby Marks. Okay, so this is from his bandwidths of the cap. The Raptors find themselves in tier 3. There are 4 tiers. Tier 1 includes teams like Brooklyn that have plenty of cap space. Tier 2 includes about 19 teams that basically have their full mid-level. And tier 3 includes teams that have their taxpayer mid-level, because as it currently stands, the Raptors are, for the intents and purposes of the NBA, a tax team. Now, are they going to pay a dime of this tax? No, because they're a tax team because of how the NBA calculates tax pre-end of season, which is it includes unlikely incentives. And the Raptors have, I think, $6 million in unlikely incentives between 3 players, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and Jakob Poeltl, if I'm not mistaken. So that's sort of where you get to this. And basically, after signing Garrett Temple, after drafting Colin Murray-Boyles, his cap hold, Chris Boucher probably won't be back. He has a $20 million cap hold. And so the Raptors find themselves pretty much as the last dog to the bull. There aren't a lot of players that are jumping over themselves to sign with the Raptors. Where the Raptors may be able to find somebody is maybe a center who doesn't find a home somewhere else, would see an opening here, and his agent would say, this could be a good place to go prove it because you're going to get plenty of minutes. If Jakob Poeltl goes down, you might be thrust into a starting center spot. However, it does not feel like we're seeing the clear volume of minimum contracts that we saw last year. Right now, what we're seeing is a lot of $5, $4, $3, $6 million deals being signed, and a lot of serviceable players like Day'Ron Sharpe going at those levels. Okay. And Day'Ron Sharpe was a huge target of mine. Obviously, I've been talking about it forever. Linus Kleza, a troll, saying, Shamsbaum, I'm signing for the minimum. We don't want you. Had you once, didn't like you first time. Sorry about that. Okay. So basically, this is where the Raptors find themselves. They do not want to trigger the second apron. I don't think they're anywhere close to it. They certainly don't want to trigger the first apron and then be hard capped. They have a very limited wiggle room, which is why for all of the last 7 months, I've been talking about trading the contract of RJ Barrett. It is precisely because in this moment, this is where you don't want to be. There are a lot of teams that are going to be able to benefit from operating below the cap. The Brooklyn Nets Brooklyn Nets are not going to be a good team this year. They have been looking for a first round pick for Cam Johnson forever, right? So what they've done right now is they have leveraged the Denver Nuggets' desperation to retool very quickly and compete with Nikola Jokic, and they're taking an unprotected first. Unprotected firsts are a sin. You should not trade them, especially when you have an MVP candidate, MVP caliber player like Nikola Jokic, who is past 30, and you don't have a lot of young players behind him, and you're probably going to be really bad when you convey that pick. So obviously, anything can happen in the lottery. That unprotected first could be the first overall pick. It is a calculated gamble by Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets, and I think it's going to pay off. I actually don't think the Denver Nuggets are going to be very good post Jokic and post Jamal Murray. They could end up signing Jokic, to a legacy contract, at which point there'll be a lottery team in the Western Conference. At that point, a lot of things can happen between now and 2032, but that's exactly why you don't trade those picks. It also hampers your ability to trade picks around that pick because of the Stepien rule. 2031, 2033 are now lost. So it sort of limits your move. Is Cameron Johnson worth it? No, Cameron Johnson is not worth doing all of that. But I think that what it does by the gap in salary, I think Michael Porter Jr. is like a 34, 35 million, 33 million type of player. The saving on that allows them to use their full non-taxpayer mid-level. So we'll see what they do with that. They just got Bruce Brown, so that's a good signing for them. And I think overall they're doing okay. Obviously, you don't get players like Nikola Jokic in many, once in a generation type of player. Maybe every franchise is lucky to have one player this good every 50 years. If you have a window to compete with him, you kind of have to do that. The Raptors parted with multiple firsts to put a core together around Kawhi Leonard, which included Marc Gasol, guys like Serge Ibaka, etc. So I kind of get it. I kind of get it from the Denver side, and I definitely get it from the Brooklyn side. Brooklyn is in asset accumulation mode, and Cameron Johnson was a hot commodity. So again, this is where the Toronto Raptors find themselves. Now, a little bit on exceptions, once again, from Bobby Marks, really, really smart capologist. You should definitely follow him. And another person you should definitely follow if you want to understand the cap a little bit better is certainly somebody that has, been on the show, and, he's great around the Toronto Raptors, and that's Blake Murphy. Definitely check him out. So in terms of the tax mid-level, this is what the Raptors could potentially be operating with if they, want to pay a luxury tax bill and or dip into part of this. And that would be 5.6 million. They have the room mid-level potentially. The certain teams will have this I believe every 2 years, or is that the biannual? And that's 8.7. There's a minimum, and obviously worth noting, veteran minimums are counted very differently towards your cap in terms of your tax bill. The NBA greatly incentivizes teams to sign older players, and they'll eat some of that. It doesn't count towards your luxury tax bill. So the Raptors save about $1 million and change on Garrett Temple's contract. He doesn't exactly get the full 3 point something in terms of what it counts towards your luxury tax bill. So there's a little bit of cap saving there. So if the Raptors want to go out and sign Tristan Thompson or something like that, that would be in a similar vein. And the Raptors, obviously, they're going to owe Colin Murray-Boyles about $6.5 million, depending on that. The cap figures have come out in terms of, where we're at. Let me just pull up Bobby Marks' number here, and then we'll talk about the individual deals. Give me one sec here. Where are we at? Got to scroll back a little bit here. A lot of deals, man. A lot of deals here. Santi Aldama goes off the books. Sequencing of these deals is going to be very important here. Also want to give a big shout out to this community. I did not notice that yesterday we crossed 13,000 subscribers. Huge milestone. We're stuck around 12, 12.2, 12.3, 12.4 for almost 4 months. I think it was 4 months. So early on in this channel's, life trajectory, when we were making a lot of videos and not lives, yeah, there were sometimes, a month where you get 1,000 subscribers when we were really young. But now moving up 1,000 feels like a really big deal to me. So thank you very much for that. It means a lot. Thank you. Chris Burgess, fire Bobby Webster. I understand why you're saying that. I do. And we will certainly roast Bobby Webster a little bit, but please don't spam that comment multiple times. It's annoying. We get it. You don't like Bobby Webster. We get it. Where we at? Okay. So there is a post about the Toronto Raptors somewhere. I just wanted to show you where the Raptors salaries are. Where are we at, man? Did he not do this in chronological? Did he not do this in alphabetical order? Or did I just miss it? Anyways, it doesn't completely matter. I wanted to have the graphic up while I talked about the Raptors, but yes. Second here. So yeah, Garrett Temple 3.6 million. Yeah, that's a cap saving move. And it could be, the Raptors don't have a lot of roster spots available. So more than likely you're going to see them make one more signing, right? Now, in terms of just valuation around the league, some teams tend to overpay, some teams tend to underpay. I think the Miami Heat here, 2-year, $24 million for Davion. Honestly, I would say that's an overpay. 100% that's an overpay. That's not a deal that you're going to find a lot of suitors for. And I think that before we talk about all the deals and we'll definitely go through the list of all the deals that have been broken and all of the consequences for the East and the West, etc. Right? Orlando Magic just getting Tyus Jones to a 1-year, $7 million deal. He had a last year. He was on a prove it minimum with the Phoenix Suns. So we'll talk about all the deals. But first, I just want to quickly talk about how the Raptors got here and why I titled this "The Raptors Are in Salary Cap Hell." So typically, if you're expensive as a team, you're usually pushing contention, right? Usually. And in an ideal sense, you have a lot of players that have a lot of value because you're very good. So a team that was pushing contention and had a lot of expensive players was a team like Boston, or currently a team like New York. If New York wanted to right now, they could probably find a suitor for most of their key players. Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, if they just wanted to scrap it. They're a good team. The Indiana Pacers are another team. They have maybe not the most expensive roster, but they have a couple of really expensive pieces and a couple of soon to be expensive pieces. The Denver Nuggets were another team that had a very expensive roster. Their roster, of course, their general manager and coach got fired for a reason because there were a lot of contracts on that team that weren't very movable. And that's why they found it so difficult to retool last season. But I think in terms of like a roster that's really, really great, apart from the obvious contenders, OKC Thunder, I would look at a roster off the top of my head, a roster that is really great in terms of balancing their cap sheet and just sort of managing everything. Right now, San Antonio feels all right, in that sense. They don't have any killer albatross contracts. They just signed Luke Cornett. Maybe they're not the best example. What's a great example? Y'all wanna help me out? What's a great example of a team with a lot of really great contracts that are just very fairly valued? That's kind of expensive. Well, I guess, I'm blanking here. What's a great team in terms of, like, obviously the OKC Thunder are incredible. They have their entire bench signed up for $60 million. That's amazing. I'm trying to think here. Chicago has Patrick Williams contract. That's not so great. Josh Giddey might not be so great soon. Yeah, I mean, everyone's saying OKC. Houston. Orlando's great. Okay, so Jeff Weltman. That's kind of bittersweet for the Raptors, right? Because he was your guy, and then he went and became their guy. So Paolo, expensive, very soon, but tradable. Franz, expensive as of today, but extremely valuable around the league. Jalen Suggs, expensive as of today, but very tradable and very valuable around the league. Desmond Bane, very valuable around the league. If that team ever needed to shift, retool, parse out pieces, they have no problem. They are very clued into the archetypes that sell, or the archetypes that have a lot of value around the league. A team that is not so clued into which archetypes have value is the Toronto Raptors. So I want to think about two players, okay? And please put your Raptors bias aside. And if you've not watched Karis LeVert all year, don't comment on this. Karis LeVert and RJ Barrett, okay? 2 non-star wings. RJ scored more, assisted more, turned the ball over more. Karras actually had a lower assist to turnover ratio, has a lot of the same scoring skills, just on lower volume. Didn't have as featured a role because he was on actual playoff teams last year, and actually is way more efficient. Shoots 37% from three as opposed to 30% from three. So sorry, 35% from three. He's way more efficient at the free throw line. He's more efficient from two. He's a better scorer. He's just more efficient overall last year. I don't even care about the upside trajectory because he's damn near 30. He just signed with the Detroit Pistons, right? So I think the market is sort of telling you, you may think RJ Barrett's a good player. You may think Brandon Ingram's a good player. You may think Jakob Poeltl's a really good player. You may think Emmanuel Quickley's a really good player. You may think all these guys are really good players, just like you might have thought when the Raptors traded for him that Bruce Brown had value. However, when you change the contract and you make it so inflated, the value kind of goes away. Like, I really like Ty Jerome at $8 million, but Ty Jerome at $28 million is a fucking albatross. I would love Michael Porter Jr. at $12 million a year, but Michael Porter Jr. at $36 million or $34 million is really tough in today's economy and in today's CBA environment. Take a look at someone like Gary Trent, Norman Powell, right? This swap that the Raptors made, 18, 19 million for either player doesn't feel exorbitant. But one of those players is actually worth it, and the other one became an albatross the second he signed it. There is a certain way that executives who manage NBA teams need to do a lot of different things all at once. You need to keep an eye on the now, you need to keep an eye on the present and the future, right? But you also need to learn from the past. You need to have an understanding of how your players are going to mature, obviously within reason. You can't predict Achilles tears and blood clots and all these things, these horrible things that happen. But for the most part, you need to be able to project your roster pretty well. You need to be able to say, well, I think Pascal Siakam is going to age out gracefully, or maybe he's not going to age out gracefully based on what I've seen and the track record of players like him. I think that is an important thing. Tracking out your players and projecting your players is probably the most important thing. Just understanding who you have on your roster and what they're worth to you and to others is the most important thing. See Gilgeous Alexander Shea Clippers, okay? Knowing that you had a future MVP or someone who had the potential to do that, throwing it down the river for what you believed was a 3-year championship window. I don't know. Maybe you build a time machine, you don't do that. So understanding who you have on your roster, understanding that Grady Dick is expendable and Jacoby is not, or vice versa. Understanding that, if Colin Murray-Boyles has an excellent rookie season, the way Charlie Villanueva did, is that someone that you look to trade next offseason, or is that someone that you say is untouchable next offseason? These are the things that general managers get paid to do. The other thing general managers get paid to do is understanding, yeah, you may have a good player, but what does the market dictate their worth? Because if I ever need to move off this player, now I really need to have an out. It's building an out. It's like when you buy a house, okay? You need to build an out in case you need to sell it, That's why you do things to maintain the value of your house. You keep your amenities updated and all that stuff. And if you don't, you're going to have to pay $40,000, $50,000 to renovate your house before you sell it. So it's the same thing with managing the cap sheet and managing sort of the environment around the NBA, is understanding which of your players have value and how valuable are they, and then not signing them to contracts that are drastically exceeding that value that anyone else would pay them. So I know that anyone in the league right now would be happy to take OG Anunoby on their roster for $36 million. Would they be willing to part out 4 picks? No, maybe not. But they'd be willing to take that salary. Nope, no questions asked. And maybe even give me a pick for it. So when I know that, now I feel a little comfortable signing OG to 36, right? But what about Emmanuel Quickley? Well, is there a team in the league right now, in your estimation? Let's just say Emmanuel Quickley gets voided. His contract gets voided. He and the Raptors mutually agree to void his contract, and he is an unrestricted free agent. What is his market value? Even via a sign and trade, which, at least uncomplicates the fact that there aren't a lot of teams with cap space. What is his real market value? It's probably something close to 22, 23. Now, when you sign a guy to 32, there's really not a lot of room to go up. There's a lot of room to go down when he's actually worth 22, 23. That's amazing. I said 22, 23. You said 22.5. Okay, here's another question. RJ Barrett, void his contract. What is he worth? On the open market right now, I believe he would sign a contract identical to the one that Karis LeVert just signed. Somewhere around there. He's not getting a contract much more than what Karis LeVert and Nickeil Alexander-Walker just got. You may think he's a better player because he's a 25-5 guy. I'm trying to tell you how the league sees RJ Barrett, not how you think of RJ Barrett. If you think he's worth 24, 25, my goodness, I don't think so. I think he's worth 18. I think he's worth 15 to 18 million dollars. He's being paid 27. That's why you're not getting return. Jakob Poeltl, once again, Jakob Poeltl. What is Jakob Poeltl worth on the open market? I think he's worth 15 to 20. And he's being paid 19.5. So Jakob Poeltl is okay. Jakob Poeltl, if you wanted to trade him, you wouldn't have to do what the Denver Nuggets just did, which is you wouldn't have to move assets to move him. You're also not going to get multiple assets back because he's not a discount. He's not discounted anymore. He's fairly paid, and a team that needs a center could make a move for someone like him. He's certainly a little bit better than Luke Cornett, and Luke Cornett just got, over $10 million a year from the Spurs. So if you think of it that way, Jakob Poeltl might have some actual value. He also has a lot of value to you because last I checked, he's the only 7-footer on your roster. So you look at a player like Brandon Ingram. That's another great example. Is a player that you bought on the Jeep, you bought on the low, you parted out with a first-round pick that you didn't think was that valuable, became somewhat super valuable afterwards because Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles. Now that is a tough one because if Brandon Ingram was on the market right now and he could facilitate a sign and trade, I'm willing to say some team out there would bite the bullet and pay him $30 million. I don't think they give him a player option in that third year, but I think they would do $60 million for 2. Okay. So once again, you've overpaid by about 25%. Now, if the Raptors win 47 games next year and Brandon Ingram is healthy and he's back to scoring 22, 23 points per game efficiently, all of this will be forgotten. And maybe the value of 30 million a year climbs up to 35, 36. But the idea that either Brandon Ingram or Emmanuel Quickley are going to exceed the value combined or, individually of the contracts they signed with you is very low. This is not like signing Fred VanVleet to $17 or $18 million and betting on upside. It didn't feel at that moment that Fred was ever going to exceed that contract, by the way, but he did. And right now, that's kind of where you're at right now. You have a lot of expensive pieces, and the league is telling you, we don't care. These are not winning players right now because you haven't won on this roster in a couple of years, in the past couple of years. Your most tradable asset right now is Scotty Barnes. I believe if you wanted to just take a salary dump back for him, he would net you 4 to 5 pretty decent first-round picks right now from a team like Washington, Brooklyn, something like that. If you, I don't know, wanted to trade Scotty right now for, I don't know, what would it be? Portland. Okay, salary dump, Portland. So you take Jeremy Grant's contract back and some crap. Okay, yeah, you can get 4 first-round picks for that, maybe 5. Maybe you get an extra swap for taking back Jeremy Grant's contract. That's a player that has actual value. I think Jacoby has actual value. It just so happens that the players have actual value are the ones you don't want to trade. It's kind of funny. The Raptors invested a 9th overall pick in a player that I actually think is not going to have a tremendous amount of value because this is exactly the type of player that tends to get undervalued in the trade market because it's not a player that a lot of players, not a lot of teams can suit him. Because that's the other thing. You shouldn't be aiming for niche. Portability is a huge thing when it comes to trade assets and trade valuation. Why is it that a player like Desmond Bain goes for 4 first-round picks? Why? Why is it that a player like Cameron Johnson, who, again, to most casual fans, is not better than Michael Porter Jr., why is it that he gets you an unprotected first? Because they're plug and play. Trey Murphy and Herb Jones are plug and play. They can fit in anywhere, which means when you open up the market for them, there aren't a lot of teams that are like, you know what, Herb Jones, I'm good. I don't need that on my roster. The Raptors have a lot of those players that a lot of teams say, you know what, I'm good. I don't need that on my roster. Who are the players that are, you know what, that guy fits everywhere? Jacoby Walter, Ochai Baji, Scotty Barnes. That's about it. Those are your 3 guys. Those are your 3 guys. And 2 of those guys I desperately don't want to move off of. Are there any others that really, evoke that type of, sentiment in you? I mean, it's funny because the Raptors passed on Maxime Renault in the second round. And if he pans out, which, jury's still out, who knows what happens with the Kings, that's exactly the type of player that every team could use. A stretch big who can come off the bench for 12 minutes. Which team can't use that? The Raptors could certainly use that right now. A player that maybe a lot of teams don't need, a 6'1" combo guard who doesn't shoot super well, who can't really create for others. The Raptors consistently outsmart themselves, and I don't understand why. Why is it that a team that used to invest in the most valuable archetypes suddenly stopped investing in valuable archetypes altogether? I don't get it. And this is why you're in salary cap hell. Because right now, you're rolling into the season with a roster that does not make sense. And you have no way out of it. You don't have a clear path out of it. You can salary dump RJ Barrett with a pick attached easily and get back a piece that maybe makes a little bit more sense for you that's a little bit older. You could salary dump Emmanuel quickly, easily. But you're not getting somebody else's solution for your problem because nobody sees Emmanuel Quickley as a $32 million player. We didn't see Emmanuel Quickley as a $32 million player. Why we decided to make him a $32 million player, that's really anyone's guess at this point. It felt rich at the time, man. I made my initial reaction to everyone who says I was cool with it. Yo, I'm not trying to trash our starting point guard after a history of trashing all of our starting point guards. Have you noticed that? Kind of go down really hard on these starting point guards. Fred, Dennis, I mean, shit. I really roast those guys, right? But I said it in the moment. 25. That's what I would pay him. 27 would be a stretch because I know it's Toronto and the taxes and whatever. When the deal comes out for 32, I'm like, I don't know who they think this guy is, but he's going to have to play a lot better than he's currently playing and has perhaps ever played to warrant this type of extension. And 5 years is not appealing until you get till about year 4. So you're kind of locked into a core and you don't know if this is going to work and you have no pivot out. And the worst part about this is when you find out it doesn't work, everybody else is also going to find out it doesn't work. So if you start out 2-10 next year and you're deciding, you know what, we kind of want to tank. Well, the good thing is you have your pick. The bad thing is now everyone's like, now you got to give us stuff to get off these contracts. So you don't really have a way out. Your prayer at this point is development. And that's perhaps your only way out. Development. Your development can get you out of this. Rapid development. Unforeseen, unprecedented development. We saw a clip of Scotty Barnes today going around the internet. Shout outs to my man Brian Macon getting back in the gym. Scotty is just wetting threes from the corner, unedited. Boom, 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 boom. I think he hit like 14 or 15 in a row. Mechanics are better. They're getting better. Like I'm telling you, like I'm not a shooting coach or a shooting doctor, but I shot very well throughout my life. I know what a good jump shot is and what the mechanics of a good jumper are. His form has always bothered me to that extent that there are things mechanically wrong that consistently come up. Inconsistent shooting form, hands kind of crossing, shooting from the wrong place. His jumper has gone through a magical evolution from Florida State till today. And I'm telling you, every single year, there is more and more progress towards, okay, this looks like a guy who can shoot. And I think you're seeing it, maybe not in the, okay, maybe you're going to say, hey, Rob, He shot 28% from three last year. What the fuck? But Jeremiah Fear shot 28% from three, and I trust his jumper too. My point is, I think you're seeing the buds of a guy who can shoot, and I think he's going to shoot. So if Scotty can shoot, that solves a huge problem. It solves a spacing problem. Grady Dick is going to have to be an actually meaningful contributor next year. He has to be, man. He's a lottery pick, third year. You need this guy to take a major jump up defensively. You need him to take a major jump up as a shooter because this is a roster that needs 3-point shooting. He's going to have to come and he's going to provide consistency. Ochai Agbaji, contract eligible right now. What is he worth? The market is telling me he's worth 3 years, $28 million. The Raptors' history is telling me he's going to get 3 years, $45. And that's tough. That's going to be tough because I don't think he's anywhere close to the player that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is. But the Raptors will probably overpay. If there's one guarantee, it's that. What is RJ Barrett worth on an extension? There's really no reason to extend either one of those players right now. If you extend Ochai, then there's a poison pill provision that is going to restrict you from being able to move him at the deadline if you ever wanted to pivot off of him. And I don't know if there's a team that's going to be willing to take him on without that extension, with the pending restricted free agency. What will he be worth? What will he not be worth? But he's a valuable archetype. He's a player that every team can use. Ochai Agbaji is an investment in what I would consider a plug and play type of player, a good type of player to have. So those are two extensions that are on the board. And then Jakob Poeltl. Some people have said as high as $30 million. If the Raptors do extend Jakob at $30 million, I'm going to flip because he's not a $30 million player. No, he is not. No. Just because the Nets slightly overpaid Nick Claxton at $25 million does not mean you need to lose your mind, because I think Naz Reid is a more valuable player than Jakob Poeltl, and he signed for 25 to stay in Minnesota. And I do think, all respect to Minnesota aside, I do think the Raptors present a better opportunity than the Minnesota Timberwolves. I do think that, okay, not to win, but in terms of as a city, in terms of, marketing, branding, market size, all that stuff, yeah, there's no way that we are going to be paying guys more than Minnesota has to pay guys. And I do think Naz Reid is the younger player, the more valuable archetype. He can shoot. Naz is valuable. So I think that Jakob Poeltl's extension should be $22 million is the highest. And knowing that I'm saying that, it's probably going to be 25. So if you extend Ochai plus Jakob to 40 combined annual average value, well, now you're not only screwed, you're desperate, because now you have to move RJ, because now the tax bill is coming for you. So it's very important that the sequence of these events is correct for the Raptors, which means you don't signal distress before you're in distress. And if you sign Jakob and you sign Ochai and everybody knows that you're not willing to be a tax team, well, now one of Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett are going to get severely depressed in terms of their value. I didn't mean depressed as in like emotionally depressed, but maybe they'll be depressed about how many times their names are coming up in trade talks. Obviously, another player that needs to contribute this year is Jacoby Walter. I think he needs to be huge, and it will help tremendously if Colin Murray-Boyles is able to hit the ground running. A player that could solve some of the problems for the Toronto Raptors, if not all the problems for the Raptors at the backup big spot, is one of Jonathan Mobo or Ulrich Chomsky. Now, which of these players is actually going to emerge? Are either of them going to emerge? When are they going to emerge? They're cheap salaries. Jamison Battle could also be someone who could fill in case you do move off of Grady somewhere in the midseason for a backup center, in case you make that deal even this offseason. I do think that Jamison Battle and the fact that you actually found someone in the undrafted heap last year, that's going to be really good. What about the wild cards? Chucky Hepburn, Elijah Martin. Been doing a lot of film study on these two players before I do my film live on these guys, because I had told y'all and broke my promise that this weekend I was going to do a deep dive onto the four prospects, really, the Raptors bringing to Summer League. But I would actually like to do that more as a Summer League primer, maybe this week. I'll have a lot more time this week. I'm not going to be on the panel this week at all. So if you're someone who tunes into the panel for me, there are no episodes of me on the panel. I'm taking a week off. And frankly, it is long overdue. So, regain my mental and, decompress. Yesterday, my girlfriend and I just spent the entire evening watching movies. We watched Malcolm X, which is the film, Spike Lee film from 1992 with Denzel Washington, and we watched Till, which is the somewhat accurate historical historical events around the brutal murder of Emmett Till. So yeah, it wasn't February, it wasn't Black History Month, but it felt like those two films were sort of on our list. So we wanted to watch them and watch them back to back. So that was heavy, heavy, heavy. So yes. I'll have some time to do some film breakdown and some film work this week. I'm also trying to decompress from all the draft stuff because that shit was heavy. But could one of Chucky Hepburn or Elijah Martin just be a little bit more NBA ready? And can Jamal Shed give you enough backup depth? The Raptors are really relying on these young kids. It's a huge vote of confidence. Now, if they do something with their 2026 first round pick, like, I don't know, trade it to get off of salary, something crazy like that, well, now you're really, really investing in that youth, because now you're doing what the Pelicans did, which is saying, hey, Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen, we trust that you're ready right now. And I'm not sure that you can pencil any of these players in as above average contributors. They're not above average efficiency. They're not above average at much. In fact, the only single skill that, let me isolate skills. Among all the players that I just mentioned, I'm talking a lot of young players here. Jameson Battle, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shed, Chucky Hepburn, Elijah Martin, all these guys. Colin Murray-Boyles. What are Ulrich Chomsky, John Mobo? What are the above average skills? We all know these are not above average NBA players right now. So what are the above average skills? Is Jacoby, for a shooting guard, as he played last year, an above average shooter? No. Passer? No. Defender? No. Playmaker? No. Okay. So love Jacoby, not above average at anything right now. Grady, above average shooter for a two guard? Not really. No. So he's really not above average at much, if anything. John Mobo? Yeah, I think Jonathan Mobo is an above average defender for a power forward in the NBA. I think he's really good. But that's about it. That's his only above average skill. He's probably an above average passer for a power forward as well. So yeah, I think I could see both those things. Colin Murray-Boyles, incidentally, I think is also the same as Mobo. I think he's an above average defender relative to the league, not relative to 22, 23, 21-year-olds, relative to the league, because you're competing against the league, right? So I think Colin Murray-Boyles is is an above average passer, above average. He's not an above average rebounder for an NBA 4. He might be an above average rebounder for an NBA 3. So passer, defender. Okay. So passer, defender. You got passer, defender on those two guys. Ulrich Chomsky, I think he's an above average athlete for an NBA center, but that's it. Above average shot blocker for an NBA center, I'd say he's average. For an NBA center, I think he's average, maybe a little bit above average. That's an isolated skill, but that's the only one. Jamal Shed, I think he is an above average court organizer, game manager. He's really good at that. But as a defender, is he an above average point guard defender? No, he's a little bit undersized, not very switchable. Shooter, not even close. He's significantly below average in that regard. So no. And it's maybe Elijah Martin, you could say athleticism. He's an above average athlete for an NBA point guard, but that's about it. Chucky Hepburn, I don't think you could say he's above average at anything. So these aren't specialists. You didn't draft the next Sam Merrill or the next Isaiah Joe where you can say they're a specialist in that regard. At least I can bank on them for that, right? So yeah, you're relying on a lot of players who are below average at a lot of things to come off the bench and be average. that would be great. If you look at your starting lineup, there's a lot of players who do a lot of above average shit. I think Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram, relative to their positions, are above average at just about everything, except for maybe shooting for Scotty and maybe defense for Brandon. These are players with the fewest holes on your team. Emmanuel Quickly, maybe he's above average in a lot of things, but he's not necessarily the most above average playmaker for others. I think it can work overall, just so we're clear. I think it can work. The starting lineup can be good, but I'm curious as to how you're going to acquire space, because spacing was an issue last year. That 5-man unit had a lot of issues last year. And overall, I think you're going to, at some point, probably need to pivot off of RJ for a player who shoots better. Because again, as well as Scotty's going to shoot, he's not going to be guarded like a shooter. As well as RJ is going to shoot, he's not going to be guarded like a shooter. And Jakob is never going to be guarded as a shooter. You run into this problem consistently where you just have 2 to 3 guys at all times, especially if you're going to play Colin Murray Boyles or Jonathan Mobo. This is the complication. Even if you believed in your heart of hearts that Colin Murray Boyles is the best player, Elijah Martin's the best player, bro, you just stacking up players who have zero gravity as 3-point shooters in the NBA. I promise you, at no point in their rookie seasons are either of those players forcing a collapse on the perimeter. Nobody cares. They're going to be dared to shoot. And that's a problem, because when you're a primary and you're dared to shoot, I don't have a problem with that. When they dare Russell Westbrook, when he's peak MVP form, to shoot, that's not that big a problem. But when Russell Westbrook, the role player, is dared to shoot, it creates problems for everybody, because Elijah Martin and Colin Murray Boyles are not high usage offensive players. They're not going to be taking 20 shots a game. So the fact is, they're on the court to provide for others. They do other stuff. They defend, they're scrappy, they can, they can poke the ball away, they can convert offense to defense, etc. But in terms of actually like just providing spacing, man, you're going to be relying a lot on your actions, right? Which is going to make your team tired. And when you get out in the fourth quarter and you got to isolate, and it's BI versus his man and Scotty versus his man, everyone fan out, which is how a lot of these possessions go down the stretch, you're going to suffer, because you're not going to be able to provide the driving lanes for these guys. So I do believe at some point the Raptors roster just doesn't make sense. There's a lack of a backup big. There's a lack of a backup point guard that is league average. Again, how many teams have a backup guard who's league average? The Raptors don't. I think the Hornets have 3. The Raptors have 0. The Hornets are bad. Like, it's hard to be this incomplete as a roster and this expensive at the same time, but this is kind of where we are at. Okay. I want to break down some of these signings today and just take you through, now that we understand where the Raptors are. I want to bring on my guy, Coach Mo, on. We can probably talk about these deals one by one, but first, I just want to hear what you have to say. What's up?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I just checked on Hoops Hype out of curiosity. Hoops Hype, we as of right now have the 12th highest salary. I don't know how up to date is that. 182.24. So, I mean, I thought we were around the middle, even though we're not that good. But yeah, I mean, I was disgusted at the IQ contract when it happened.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you called it the Canada tax, or north of the border tax, but
Sure.
it's not sustainable. When Masai got, a lot of people were upset when Masai, they parted ways is the term they used. But to be honest, the way the last 5 years have gone, if you're strictly about the Toronto Raptors basketball team, I don't know if it was a bad day, considering how the last 5 years went. I'm looking at where we were. What's 5 years ago? 2020. Teams like Washington, Detroit, Atlanta, Brooklyn, Orlando, Indiana, the Knicks, and Cleveland are better run organizations the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And also, in terms of the Hoops Hype, they have not yet added they have not yet added the rookies. So a lot of those teams up top, they don't have a top 10 pick coming in and taking $6-7 million. That's why we will probably move up that list a little bit.
Yeah, but just you mentioned Bobby is more hands-on. Whether he's more hands-on, he's been the GM and Masai's been a little away more. If you're president of basketball operations and you okayed the Yakapurto trade, I called it the moment that happened. I called that a fireable offense. That Yakapurto trade, to me, on its own, isolated, is a fireable offense. Then you got the Burke contract, the Boucher contract, the Yakapurto contract, the IQ contract, the Yakap trade, everything that came with it, including picking Grady Dick, who I think is going to become nothing. Getting nothing for Fred VanVleet, the Norman Gary Trent trade, letting Nick Nurse and Fred VanVleet, that whole thing. I like the OG trade, but then you lost the OG trade the second you gave IQ that contract.
Right.
So there's not much. And I agree. Our only hope is non-blue chippers pop. One of these non-blue chippers have to pop. That's our only hope.
Yeah. I think so too. And again, like to anyone saying out there, like, oh my God, it's so hard to get a center, relax. We should have paid 3 picks for it, two high seconds and 1 very high first. Because I mean, honestly, San Antonio won that trade because they just replaced Jakob Poeltl with Luke Cornett for free. You know what I mean? So I think
if you're not a top 3 player on the team, what matters most is how much you fit with the top 3 guys and how much you're being paid. That's all that matters.
No, I agree.
And I think will never be a top 3 guy on the team.
Well, that's the thing. Lineup versatility is very important. Jakob Poeltl is very valuable. However, there aren't a lot of really contending teams right now that would start him over the player they already have. So any team trading for him would be trading for a backup center. And $20 million is very expensive for a backup center. So I think too often the Raptors will look at, well, what is this guy to me? And they don't think too much about what is he to everybody else. And I think that the funny thing about this is how poorly the Raptors cap sheet has been managed. And given that I think sometimes reputations carry more than actions. Like you could say someone's an asshole, right? And that's the first thing you hear about them. They're an asshole. So now everything they do just looks asshole-ish. Like maybe they don't open the door for the guy behind them. And you're like, yeah, that's what an asshole would do. I think when Bobby Webster was introduced to the Raptors, because of his general demeanor as a little bit of a bookish nerd type, you get what I mean, right? Like he kind of acts like one. I think people just sort of filled in the gaps. There's a lot of the backstory and the mythology of, him. He applied for the CIA job, didn't get it, worked at the league office, is widely considered as the capologist. And I think even Keith Pelly said, oh, nobody understands the cap better than him. Again, actions speak louder than words, man. This is not great cap management from where the Raptors are right now. Now, obviously, they're not a tax team. And when the incentives, which are unlikely incentives, are then pulled back at the end of the year because, RJ Barrett is not going to win MVP and get that extra $1 million or whatever the hell is on his contract to do so, well, you're not going to be a tax team, which is great. But you also don't have a lot of ability right now or maneuverability. Maneuverability, which, by the way, you gave up when you traded for Brandon Ingram. Now, I understand trading for Brandon Ingram because you felt that there was no way or there was going to be no way to get him, right, in free agency because you didn't have the cap space to go and get him, right? But what else might you have been able to do? You'll never know. You might have been able to get first-round picks. Last year, the Raptors operated with a little bit of flexibility. They were compensated multiple seconds to eat the contracts of Sasha Vezenkov and Davion Mitchell. This year, the Brooklyn Nets choose to operate as a below-the-cap team. They are able to benefit. You look at a team like Detroit, they benefit from letting some of their guys go. They get Karis LeVert, who I think is a very good player, but obviously, they lose Dennis Schroeder. They probably lost Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. So I don't even know if Detroit's going to be a better team next year. But the point is, there's certain opportunities that open up when you allow yourself that wiggle room. And I don't think the Raptors have operated with any wiggle room at all right now. And the question really that I think should be on everyone's mind is, what if your hypothesis is wrong? That Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl work. Now, I have a lot of issues, at least on paper, with this lineup, which is all 3 of them operate from the exact same place on the court. And I've already seen how this does not work with certain players. and they kind of get in each other's way. So you can look on paper and say, RJ's a good player, Emmanuel is a good player, Jakob is a good player, Scotty's a good player, BI is a good player. We have 5 good players. This should work. Yeah, but Ben Simmons was a good player, Joel Embiid was a good player, and then fundamentally they kind of got in each other's way, right? Because they both wanted the same place on the court. So I think I listened to a 40-minute presser with Sam Presti, and I felt a tremendous amount of envy. Just a what ifism. I don't typically have a lot of envy in my heart. Obviously, I'm very happy for the OKC Thunder. Really rooted for them through this entire playoff process. Love that team. But man, I just was like, he really gets it. Yeah. He gets it. He gets how to draft. He gets how to manage. He's signing these players to really inexpensive deals. And every time I see a player sign with their team, like I want to put something in context for you. Day'Ron Sharpe is a legit 23-year-old center who can play in the NBA. He is a good shot blocker. He is a good defender. And he is a former first-round pick. And he is a former 5-star recruit. And he is someone that has actual trade value around the league. If you wanted to trade him, you might be able to get a really weak first for him. The Brooklyn Nets, who are not a good team, just signed that guy to 2 years, $12 million. Yeah. The Toronto Raptors in 2021 signed Khem Birch to $18 million for 3 years. And Khem Birch had no value around the league, as evidenced by the fact that he came to the Raptors when he got waived by the Magic. My point is, why does this team keep doing this to themselves? Thaddeus Young, $8 million. Nobody will ever trade for that. Kelly Olynyk, $11 million. $22 million across 2 years. Who was trading for that? Even Chris Boucher. They tried to trade Chris Boucher for the last 2.5 years, and nobody took him. What does that tell you about the contracts that you're signing these guys to that become albatross the second you sign them? You can't keep doing this. And if signing a player to an albatross contract means not signing them and losing them, I'll lose them. Now, obviously, you can't make a trade for OG Anunoby for Emmanuel Quickley, and then when Emmanuel Quickley comes to the table and says, I want $32 million, just say, okay, well, we're willing to let you walk. But wait a second, restricted free agency, right? Yep. Who was signing him to that contract? I believed he had 2 suitors. I truly believed he had San Antonio and Orlando. I believed that those were his 2 suitors. Those also happen to be the 2 teams we are most close with in terms of front office. Jeff Weltman and Brian Wright, like we know these guys. So we should have been able to gauge very quickly that if Emmanuel Quickley was going to have that type of market, then maybe don't let him stat pad the way he did, making him more expensive, the way we did with Gary Trent, the way we did with, in the bubble. And the second thing is, if he's going to be that expensive, don't trade for him. Trade for someone who's already on a reasonable contract. This team just really boggles me sometimes, because it's like they think they can't do wrong because they won a championship, and they've done wrong ever since. Yeah. Feels good, man, saying this convo is too real. The fans can't handle the truth. Yo, I hope y'all know. Coach Mo and I are very big Raptor fans. You are not a bigger Raptor fan than us because you are choosing to pretend and live in La La Land and pretend that Grady Dick is worth 3 first-round picks and that RJ Barrett is a better player significantly or materially than most small forwards in the league. He's not. And I think it's okay to be real. I really do. I think reality hit us all in the face when Masai Ujiri left. And I think reality is going to hit us even harder when we realize that we've been dangling some of these players for 2 years and we get nothing for them. I think there's just certain players that hold value better. If I'm looking around the draft, I'm looking at guys like Carter Bryant, Cedric Coward. These guys are like 3-and-D types. They hold a lot of value, right? Conmere Boyles, less value. Undersized guards. There's an investment in archetypes that I think is just missing in the Raptors' thought process. I don't know, between Dan Tolzman and Bobby Webster and Masai Ujiri, who was focusing on this element of team building. But investing in the right archetypes is very important. And it's funny because the Raptors had this amazing archetype in OG Anunoby, and they still couldn't extract proper value for him. But I wonder if maybe trading OG Anunoby for 3 first-round picks, as was previously reported, and the contract of Bogdanovich, which I think was the deal that initially the Nets offered, wasn't that better?
Yeah.
It's not saying the 3 first-round picks are better on the court than RJ Barrett. It's not. But the Raptors failed the marshmallow experiment. They wanted the stale donuts. They wanted the stale marshmallows. They wanted the one. They wanted the thing that they could hold. It's so funny because, you know, if you think about the Spurs trading Kawhi, they also hamstrung themselves because they needed a 20 point per game scorer back. They wanted to be relevant. They wanted to still be a playoff team. They're like, hey, we have a winning culture to maintain here. I think the Raptors have taken all the wrong notes from the Spurs. And maybe they need to adjust their book on how the Spurs have operated the last few years, because the Spurs had no problems being bad the last couple of years.
Yeah. If I was the Lakers, if I was the Spurs, I was shocked they didn't take the package that basically ended up going for Anthony Davis or something close to that. That was a way better deal for the Spurs.
Mm.
Give me all those young assets from the Lakers. But going back to Emmanuel quickly, even if he has the greatest season of his life,
Yeah.
right? His ceiling isn't that high, but let's say he kind of peaks.
Yeah.
All other teams are going to say is, okay, that was fluke. Do it again.
Yeah.
That's all they're going to say. We're not giving you anything for him. We still think he's overpaid, and we think it's a fluke.
Right.
So you're really stuck with him.
Yeah. And you're choosing to be in the Emmanuel Quickley business for a while. And again, you're thinking about this in terms of if Scotty becomes a superstar, then Emmanuel Quickley is relevant. So everything we're talking about, everything hinges on Scotty being a superstar. If he doesn't become a superstar, none of this works, because now he's a second fiddle and he's not a great second fiddle. Scotty can be a great, I think he could be a complementary piece in the right setting, in the right system. But obviously, the best version of this is he's a 25 point per game scorer and an awesome leader and an awesome defender. And he's really your de facto one. And he's able to put up impact metrics north of 6 to 7 boxes minus and just kind of floor raise you to like a 30-win team. And then everybody else just kind of fills in the extra 17 to 18 wins. That's a lot of pressure on Scotty Barnes for sure. But I think that none of this really works if he's not that level of player. I wanted to go down and just break down some of the deals that have happened. The aforementioned. Okay, so guard Colin Gillespie. Let's not even talk about that. Okay, thoughts. Zaire Williams, 2 years, $12 million to the Brooklyn Nets. I think the second year is a team option. Good deal, bad deal? What's your thoughts?
If the second year is a team option, solid. I don't think he's that good.
I don't think he's that good either, and I think it's just basically going to be converted as it's going to be treated as a double expiring, which is a very valuable salary. He is salary filler. Just anyone out there who thinks that, oh, the Brooklyn Nets must really believe in Zaire Williams. That is not a contract that says we believe in you. Team option signals the same thing to every player. Joe Ingles, minimum thoughts?
Yeah, nothing.
Solid. Day'Ron Sharp, 2 years, $12 million, fully guaranteed.
$6 million a year. That's a great deal.
Agreed. That is a fucking great deal. And I wish the Raptors had their full mid-level, and I would have thrown $10 million a year at that guy in a heartbeat. Like, I think he's really good and very serviceable and a hard worker. And I think he's gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. I really liked him. There is a player who, to my last check, was still available, and that's Josh Minot of the Minnesota Timberwolves. They did not pick up his option. He's close with Scotty. I hope he calls Scotty and says, get me onto the Raptors, man. But it's like, dude, do we need another wing right now? I don't know. Okay. Jordan Clarkson finalizing contract buyout with the Utah Jazz. I believe he's already signed with his next team, or he is not, and it's expected to be New York. So that's a great deal for New York if they do get him. Thoughts on Jaren Jackson Jr., 5-year, $240?
Let's see. A little rich for me, but not the worst. Not the worst.
They also renegotiated his contract for this year to boost him by $10 million.
So this next year counts as the 5 years, one of the 5 years.
I think it's 5 years plus this year, but could be wrong. It's so they're signed up long term with him for sure. I mean, he's a very valuable archetype. So this is very much in the OG vein of every single team needs a shot blocking wing big who can, stretch the floor. So as long as he continues to be this type of player, he's always going to be worth multiple firsts for a salary dump. Now, you're not going to get, this is not Giannis. This is not Kawhi. This is not Paul George in his prime. This is a notch below that. And when you pay these guys like they're those guys, there's a limited upside. So one injury and boom, now he is Bradley Beal. So it's tough. when you trade on the margins like this, when you sign on the margins, and I consider like you're really fucking with fire. You're playing with fire. You know, when you sign a guy like this who's a non-franchise player, has struggled so bad in the playoffs. I don't know how many people watching Memphis games.
Struggling
This
with
dude,
fouls and
this
rebounding.
dude is a ghost. He is a ghost in the playoffs. Like, he is horrible. Okay, Santi Aldama, same team, 3-year, 52.5 Memphis Grizzlies.
I think that's a good deal.
I think it is too. So that breaks down to about 17, 18 a year. Santi Aldama. It's not great, obviously, but it's not bad.
I'd rather
That's a
him than Jakob.
movable. That's a movable contract.
I'd rather him than Jakob on our team. Play him 20 minutes a night. You're golden.
He's young too. He's younger than Jakob. He also has a really, really, really good relationship with Darko Rajakovic. So, you know, if we had cap space, we would have pursued him. But knowing us, we would have pursued him with an offer sheet north of 25 million. So it's just like we're fucked either way.
The three guys I wanted us to pursue as our big was like him, Santi Aldama, Naz Reid, or Jabari Smith Jr. And they're all three are gone.
Yeah. Dorian Finney-Smith is going to be leaving the Los Angeles Lakers. Obviously, this cap space, removing his cap hold allowed them to make the deals that they did, Jake LaRavia, but $43 million for 4 years.
53. It says 53.
Sorry, it's $53 million for 4 years.
Great deal. It's a great deal.
DFS.
Solid player.
Okay, Paul Reed, 2-year, $11 million to return to the Detroit Pistons.
I think you could have got him cheaper.
I do too. So Detroit overpaid twice this offseason, which is interesting. It's just nice to know which other front offices are doing what we do and overpaying.
I just ask myself, can this guy play playoff minutes for me?
Let me ask you a question. Bobby Webster is negotiating the deal. Actually, I'm gonna go back. I want to go back and actually just explore all of these. I want you to tell me what Bobby Webster would pay these players if he had cap space. Zaire Williams.
Probably 2 years, 15.
Okay, so $3 million more, and probably no team option, probably a player option for some fucking reason. Joe Ingles, I think we can agree that would be a minimum, right? Yeah, we're not just hating. Okay. Day'Ron Sharpe.
Yeah, I think the deal you said would probably be it.
I think they would pay him 25. I think they would pay him 25 and 2 because they paid Kelly Olynyk 22 and 2.
That Kelly Olynyk contract, bro. I died. Oh my god.
I died. Okay.
2 years for what reason?
No reason at all. Jaren Jackson, they can't pay him any more than they paid him anyway, so they'd max him out too. Santi Aldama, what would they pay Santi Aldama?
3 years. I think he'd get 20 million a year for those. Minimum 20 million.
I think you're being generous. I think if we had the cap space, I think we would sign this guy to 3 years 75.
You're probably right.
3 years 70. I think we would sign him to 370.
We just signed bench players to expensive contracts.
Yep. Okay, going on. Dorian Finney-Smith, 4 years, $53 million to go to the Houston Rockets. What would the Raptors sign him for?
Are you getting Matt Carroll? DeMar Carroll flashbacks?
$60 million, 4 years.
Oh. And that was how long ago? My goodness.
Yeah.
With the way the CBA has changed and the salary cap, look what's happening now and what we were doing then. It's absolutely mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. There needs to be an investigation launched. It's hard to believe some of the contracts we're handing out, to the point where sometimes I wonder, are people getting money under the table to sign these bloated contracts? They make no sense.
They really don't. I genuinely think the Raptors, if they were signing him, would sign him to 4 years, 65. Okay, so moving on. Okay, Memphis Grizzlies, Cam Spencer, 2 years, $4.5 million. Cool.
Yeah.
No real thoughts on that.
No.
Cole Anthony is working towards an extension. Okay.
Really?
Cool. I mean, sure.
I don't think that's a priority for Memphis, but
I don't think it should be. Jake LaRavia, $12 million deal with the Los Angeles Lakers, 2 years.
I'm not familiar with him. Not gonna lie. And it ain't because he's white. I know Austin Reeves.
Is this like the is this like the I'm not racist, I have one white friend situation?
Dalton
Okay,
Connect. Dalton
I
Connect.
got you.
Come
I
on,
got you.
come
I
on.
got you. I got you. Okay, name one more white player, and you're off the hook. Ah, see, I told you you couldn't. Okay,
Doesn't do
racism
much.
confirmed.
Do much.
Racism.
Grady Dick,
He's Slavic. Okay,
the
yeah.
Great
Okay,
White
cool, cool.
Hope. Our Great White
I
Hope.
got you. I got you. Okay, Jake Larry, 2 years, 12 million. I think he's solid, man. I think that's a decent deal for them. Okay, we got Trey Jones, 3 years, 24 million to return to the Chicago Bulls. Ah, we have another team that likes to overpay.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, if this is OKC, if this is Sam Presti, I promise you this is a 3 year, 16 million. So we're probably paying him around that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that. D'Angelo Russell, 2 years, $13 million deal with the Dallas Mavericks. I believe the second year is a player option.
Wow. How the mighty have fallen, huh? I
D'Angelo
mean,
Russell?
yeah, yeah. You know what's interesting about D'Angelo Russell? The entire world watched those two series against the Nuggets.
Mm.
The entire world and said, ew. The entire basketball world went, ugh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he goes and morphs himself into a really serviceable player in Dallas, people would just continue to say
Again,
that
the
LeBron
issue
creates the
wasn't that
mess.
he sucked. The issue was he sucked at how much he was being paid for. That's the problem.
Right. And at 2 years, 13 million, I'm
Now he's
perfectly
okay.
fine with it.
And
Exactly.
now I'm
Because,
good with playing him 15 minutes, 20 minutes in certain situations. Sometimes you just bench him because it doesn't
well,
matter.
he can start for now because Kyrie is out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they just got, I mean, it was between really, there was like a trio quadrant of guards, right? Dennis Schroeder continuing on the rainbow road of bro, it is so irrational how much I don't like Dennis Schroeder. It's the funniest shit on earth. Okay. Dennis Schroeder continuing on Rainbow Road, and it would have been D'Lo, Dennis Schroeder, probably Tyus Jones, and who else? It was
They
like the
talked
other
about Chris Paul. They
Russell
talked about Chris
Westbrook,
Paul.
Chris Paul. Like that's the guard, guys. And I think D'Lo is the best option in there. Not necessarily he's a better player than Chris Paul because Chris Paul is awesome.
He can be on the court. He can be on the court.
He can be on the court when
spacing.
Kyrie comes back.
Yeah, yeah. He could at least play.
Exactly. And I think that that's a really important part of this is like, it's also about, okay, holy shit. Tyus Jones is leaving okay, I didn't see this before. But okay, first and foremost, before we get to Tyus Jones, with the craziest fumbling of the bag in the history of the world, because this guy was like legitimately on track to make twice this last year. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And then he had the playoff series he had.
And then the playoffs happened.
Oh man, this guy would have been better off like literally breaking his leg before the playoffs than going through that series. Okay. So first and foremost, the Denver Nuggets, Michael Porter and an unprotected 2032 first round pick to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. Who wins this deal?
Honestly, the Denver Nuggets.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because had they had Cam Johnson, do you know how close that OKC series was?
Yeah.
Switch Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr. in that 7-game series. I swear I'm betting the house Nuggets win. Michael Porter Jr. shows up for 2 of 7 games.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
There's no doubt in my mind they win.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think putting Cam Johnson next to Nikola Jokic is very basketball synergy. It makes a lot of sense. He's a movement shooter. I think he replicates a lot of the same stuff. I just don't think he's as pathetic on defense.
Oh, no. He's not even as pathetic on offense. Michael Porter Jr. is going to be pathetic on defense every game, but he's also feast and famine on offense. He gives you the double whammy, half the series.
I've also long suspected that Cam Johnson might be legit the smartest player in the NBA. Like, I've listened to a lot of his interviews, and it is shocking how smart he is. So putting him next to Jokic is great. They also get Bruce Brown on the minimum.
Who does?
The Denver Nuggets.
Okay, they're back. And that 3-4 combination of Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson, that's elite 3-4 combo.
I agree.
And if Gordon's 3-point shooting holds, they're right up there with OKC. They're right up there with OKC. If Gordon's shooting holds, they're right up there.
I think they need a
Because
shot
all they
creator off the
needed was
bench.
6 guys. All they needed was 6 guys.
Yeah, but I think we're finding out that you can't really win with 6 guys anymore. So I
They
really do
nearly
think
did. They nearly won with 4 guys.
well, they do have Christian Brown. Now they
Yeah,
have
he's one of the 4 guys.
so they're gonna lose Russell Westbrook more than likely.
Wasn't one
I
of the 4 guys.
yeah. I think more more or less, I think Aaron Gordon plus Cam Johnson, they're both sort of fours.
Yes.
They're both 3 4s. But I do think Cam will be a better defender than Michael Porter Jr. because
Way
I don't
better.
think he can possibly be worse.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to play better offensively off of Jokic. So he's got some ball handling in his game too. So he can do a little bit of shot creation that maybe Michael Porter can't. He's
And
a
I
better
think,
passer.
yes, he'll
And
play
then
off
Bruce,
Jokic more.
yeah, and then Bruce actually did function as a pseudo backup point guard for them at times when he was there. So, I mean, granted, I think he's regressed tremendously, but he might just be happy to be home. That was the most success he's had ever in his career. He won a championship with that team. There's familiarity there, and they're not going to have to refine the rhythm between him and Jamal Murray. Obviously, a lot of this is going to come down to how good Jamal Murray is going to be this year. But I do think the Denver Nuggets are
But
much better off today
this
than they were
also
before.
helps Jamal Murray because now with Bruce back and Cam Johnson, he has less pressure,
Agreed.
right? He has less scoring load. So
I'm wondering what their future draft picks look like. So I'm just going to look that up really quickly right now. So they have their own 2026, their own in 2028, their own in 2030. So they're already missing 2027 and 2029. Now they're also missing 2032. And it's unprotected.
they need one more guard.
Dude.
They need one more guard. Actually, no, they don't.
Do
They have
do you see what I'm saying though? They're missing multiple draft picks already. They're missing 2027, which is a stockpile, restock around Jokic, preventive injuries, whatever. They're missing 2029. So they're already half of their next 4 draft picks. And they didn't have one this year either, by the way. So they're already like way behind in terms of stocking up young talent around Jokic so he can age gracefully into his late 30s.
I don't believe in that. The Warriors tried that two timeline thing. The Raptors tried the 2 timeline thing.
I'm not talking about 2 timelines. I'm not talking about, oh yeah, we have these young guys who need reps and we have these old guys who won championships and we'll play them all together. No, I'm talking about what the Raptors did with Norman Powell and Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam and those guys, which is to say, when you had to move off of Jakob and DeMar, there were people that were able to step up in their place. That's how you build sustainability. If you look at what OKC is doing right now, it's the same thing.
The difference between the Raptors and the Denver situation was the Raptors' young guys came up in a pressure-free environment when we weren't true title contenders. It's different with Denver. Jokic is there, and it's like, yeah, we're ready to go. And we need you young players to be ready to compete for a title now. That's what Kuminga was messed up about, right?
Yeah, but I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. So right now, part of the reason the Nuggets were even in that game 7 was Christian Brown, right?
Yes.
Part of it, at least, is Peyton Watson because he had some big moments. Man, I'm not saying Peyton Watson was Christian Brown, but no Christian Brown, probably no playoffs. He was worth, honestly, $28 million last year as a rookie. So what I'm saying is, even if you're good, these 20th, 22, 23, these types of picks, the Deron Holmes, they're going to have Deron Holmes come in. That was their 2024 draft pick. He didn't play. And, he had I think it was an ACL. I think it was an ACL. It wasn't an Achilles, right? I think it was an ACL. So he was out for the year. Or was it an Achilles? Shit, now I can't remember. Someone let me know in the chat. Deron Holmes injury. I think it was serious enough to knock him out for an entire year. So they're going to get a rookie, basically, which they didn't get this year. They're going to have Deron Holmes as a rookie this year. My point is, in 2027, you don't have the benefit of finding another Christian Brown or Deron Holmes or Thomas Sorber or Grady Dick, or potentially, if you're bad, to even reap the benefits of being bad and pivoting. And the West is so competitive. Honestly, one Jokic injury, touch wood, hope it never happens. One Jokic injury, you're missing the playoffs entirely.
Yes.
And in 3 of these years, you don't have draft picks. Somebody else controls your pick. And in 2032, what I'm saying is that will all come to bear, and the roster that you've been sort of not filling out is going to be very barren by the time 2032 comes around.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you this question. You're the Nuggets.
Uh-huh.
You're the Nuggets GM. This offer is presented to you. What do you say?
Which offer?
This one right here. Porter
Which one?
Jr. for Cam.
Oh, shoot. So you're saying if I'm the Nuggets,
Yes.
I add Jalen Pickett. No way, I can't add anything because I can't aggregate salaries because I'm a second apron team because I'm a dumbass. I add I would add a protected 2032. I wouldn't do unprotected, man. I would do at least top 3 protection. Like I think the 0 protection is a window into how much Michael
How
Porter
many years?
Jr.'s
Hold on. Let
value
me
has
just check.
just
How many more
depleted.
years does Porter have? If it's an expiring,
It's not an
unprotected
expiring.
trade-
It's not an
okay,
expiring.
that's exactly why. Because nobody wants him.
Well,
Nobody wants anything to do with him.
yeah, that's something like that.
And every year he's on your roster is another year you're wasting of Jokic's prime. You're literally burning his prime years with this guy on your roster.
Right. And or Jordi
greatest
Fernandez
player you'll
unlocks
probably-
him. Hold on. Or Jordi Fernandez does for him what he did. Oh, okay. Or the Brooklyn Nets in general as an organization do with him what they did with Dennis Schroeder, what they did with Mikal Bridges, which is they trade him, they trade for him, they put him in a situation where he's featured, and this time next year, they sell him for a first-round pick.
Okay, no. A slight rehab, because I don't think you can rehab his on-court value that much. But
Dude,
the real value would
he only
be
has 2 years left.
yeah, the
so
real
he's
value would
expiring
be,
next year.
Yes, the expiring. You just hold him for a year and he becomes expiring. That's the value. And you got an unprotected pick for him. But
Right.
But I will say in Denver's defense, what were the rumors the beginning of last season, what they were asking for Cam?
2 first-round picks.
Okay, so.
But now he has 1 less year of team control because they dangled a little too long. So now they've decided to invest in a very high value first-round pick. Now, again, I think that a lot of this comes back to reporting. A lot of people like to get jazzed up about, oh, we got 4 first-round picks. But it's like, if you got the 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th pick, yeah, technically you got the 4 picks. And kudos. And if you got 4 second-round picks and it's 31, 32, 33, 34, then you got nothing. Why is that 30, the line of demarcation, so important to people? When I'm trading for first-round picks, honestly, the picks that I really want fall inside the top 15. All the picks I want. I'm looking at every team in the league that thinks they're way better than they really are, and I'm asking them top 3 protected 2029, 2030. I am invested in your failure. I don't want to, like, honestly, I'm gonna be real. I don't really even care about keeping your own picks. That's the thing. I want other people's picks. I would be far, far, far more comfortable right now if the Raptors had Denver's 32 as opposed to our own 32. But now that Masai's gone, now I really want to have all our picks because I don't know where we're going. Okay, let's move on from that deal to.
Can I just say one thing about the Cavs? You know how we would go to Cleveland? I think we went to Cleveland twice this year as the Raptors, and we got one of the games we just got blown out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being so mad watching Max Strus, right? Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill shoot 100% from 3, and I'm like, we are losing to white guys. Legit. We are getting our asses handed to us. So me being petty, boy, did I enjoy Indiana beating them in 5. Just for a November loss, bro. That's how petty I am. I'm like, oh, white boys, why aren't y'all cooking now? The white trio ain't cooking no more.
That's really funny. I remember. So there was a bunch of dudes who were professional players that from Lithuania. They came to Scarborough. I think I was 15 or 16 years old, and they wanted to run and nobody really wanted them to run, I guess, because they didn't know them or whatever. So they kept like kind of dogged them a little bit, thinking that, hey, they're foreigners. Maybe they don't know the rules about how long teams can stay on. And ultimately, my team lost and they asked me to get on their team. Bro, this team never lost. We never lost. We just couldn't lose. They shut down the lights at the court. We could not lose. So yeah, it was like four Lithuanian blonde guys and me just beating the shit out of everybody, like for 3 hours straight, 2.5 hours straight. It was just nonstop, and people just were upset as fuck. They were very upset. It
They
was
didn't
just the
build a
ball
super team.
movement.
They didn't combine all the best players from each team and just create a super team.
No, there was no LeBron James was not at the park, so the idea never came to anybody. People just kept kind of, go with their team, like,
Okay.
oh, these
Charlotte
guys.
Hornets kept showing up.
Yeah, they had that gusto. They were just like, nah, we're gonna beat these guys. They're a bunch of white guys. They're gonna beat them. And then no, dude, white players can hoop, bro. You watch
Oh yeah, yeah.
Division two
No,
basketball.
of
White,
course.
yeah. It's just maybe they kind of top out at like NBA level. So
No,
unless you're a
it
genetic
just
freak,
bothered me
like,
that it was all threes and they never got to the rim. And I'm
well,
like,
with the
dude,
increase
you
of
guys-
3-point shooting in the NBA and how valuable it is, there's it's almost like you're reintroducing a place for Con Knipple to exist in the NBA anymore and Dalton Connect. We're seeing way more of this, right? Whereas in the early 2000s, where it was just basically four guys stand around and one guy pops off from the mid range and cooks a lot and dribbles the basketball, yeah, you saw way fewer white players in the NBA. So, interesting discussion. Okay, speaking of the white guys, I don't even know if Ty Jerome is white, bro. I really
Somebody
don't.
said he was biracial. Somebody said he was biracial.
He probably is.
He played
So,
white against Indiana, though. I'll tell you that much.
oh man, bro, you're gonna get us canceled. Okay, all right. So, free agent guard Ty Jerome has signed 3 years, $28 million deal with the Memphis Grizzlies.
I love
Okay,
it. Love
you
it.
love it for Memphis or for him?
For Memphis, I think he could have got more.
Yeah, Fashion Demon is letting you know to shut up. There you go.
This guy's naming all the goats.
Yeah, he just named all the goats to let you know.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
see Ty Jerome. I don't see Ty Jerome.
because he's biracial. That's why he's not on the list.
Oh, okay.
I also, by the way, I don't see Bro, you missed Drazen Petrovic on this list. Invalid list. Completely.
What did he get? Kevin Porter?
2 years, 11 million.
Great. I mean, he was like their third best player.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have an exact number on Bruce Brown. Is it a wait? Hold on. Is it a minimum? Is it a minimum?
They can't give him much.
It's interesting. So the agents leak to Shams so that they have a say on how it's leaked. Like sometimes they over-report the number, sometimes they under-report the options, etc. So they get the wording right. So Shams is not necessarily a newsbreaker as much as he is a public bulletin board for all agents to sort of use him, right? Because all agencies are completely competing with each other. I don't know if you saw that clip of Rich Paul.
Yeah,
You saw it, the
did.
Come On Malwatch thing that I posted where,
Yeah.
he's like negotiating and he's like, yeah, I'll get him to you. I'll get him to you, So all these agents are vying. Like the dream that Rich Paul has is every player in the NBA is a clutch client. That's what he wants because that's ultimate control. And obviously people at CAA or anywhere else, they have the same goal. They are trying to get the high value guys, but they're also trying to get the mid value guys. So obviously Shams is a huge part of that entire ecosystem. And they're going to report through him. So obviously they're not reporting the money on this, which tells me the money is not a big part of the reporting. They want to report that he went home and, Ty Sullivan, CA's Ty Sullivan and Stephen Human finalized the deal with the Nuggets, right? This was uncommon, I think, a few years ago to hear the agent's name in these news reports, but boom, there you go. They want to be a bigger part of it now because Rich Paul made agents famous. Kevon Looney, 2 years, 16 million. Like it? Don't like it?
2 years, 16. No, it's a great deal.
You think it's a great deal? This is the first time we're going to disagree. I don't think it's a great deal.
Well, great is an exaggeration, but I think it's
for the
solid.
Pelicans.
I think it's solid.
I think it's solid for the Pelicans. I just think they did the same thing that the Raptors always do, which is they signed a player, and now if you ever want to move off of him, how many teams are signing up for?
What's the second year?
Actually, you know what? You're right. I'm wrong. I think 2 years, 16 million is pretty okay for him because this is kind
Yeah.
of in line with the Steven Adams money.
And,
It
and,
makes
he,
sense.
and he's a solid vet, championship experience.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay, cool. So I guess
Good
they're
locker room guy. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So Russell
I think
player
he's movable.
option. Okay. Clint Capella, 3 years, $21 million deal with the Houston Rockets. Like it? Don't like it? He's coming back to Houston, man. This offseason is all about return home, you know? Clint Capella going back to
Okay.
Houston, Bruce Brown
Here's
going
what I
back to
don't
Denver.
understand about this. Here's what I don't understand about this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you paid what's the Turkish center's name again?
Alperen Şengün.
Alperen Şengün, yes. You paid him, you paid Steven Adams, and then you paid him. Do you really need that much money at the center spot?
It's not really that much money. And
No,
Şengün
I'm saying
is
three
as
people. If you
much a
combine the
4.
salaries, if you
Yeah, but
combine the salaries.
Şengün could be a 4. Also, we're seeing more and more teams now stock up on these bigs. We saw how many Indiana had, right? So I think this is more of a depth in case of injury type of break.
So he won't play much. He won't play much.
No, I don't think he's going to play much. I think they want him as a veteran, you know, in the locker room. I think they're willing to spend right now because they have Kevin Durant and they don't want to risk. This is insurance, really. Steven Adams plus Clint Capella is crazy OD.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a bunch of guys who can't shoot outside of 3 feet. But
give me Houston's funky ultra big lineup that you might see. Because they have Jabari Smith, they have KD.
Ultra big. Okay. Yeah. Amen Thompson at the 1.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant at the 2. Jabari Smith at the 3. Alperen Şengün at the 4. Steven Adams at the 5.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked. I'd probably see that. They'll probably try that.
That would be insane. Yeah.
They have so much size.
Someone's saying Şengün at the 3. Come on.
No, that's
nah. I mean, you're already so big. You have a 7-foot shooting guard. You have a 6'11" small forward. You don't need to get any bigger than that. In fact, Şengün is not even taller than Kevin Durant. Okay, Capella's agent. Okay, Karis LeVert, 2 years, $29 million to the Detroit Pistons. Thoughts on this, and thoughts on whether Karis LeVert is significantly better or worse than RJ Barrett.
Well, let me just say, Karis LeVert has multiple 20-point plus per game seasons in Brooklyn when the team was doo-doo. Yeah. His career high is 51, so he can score. He can score. I actually love this for Detroit because they need a scorer off the bench. They need someone, because if you watched the playoffs, it was almost like Cunningham, boom or bust.
Yeah.
Karis LeVert needs nobody's help to score.
That is true.
And you need that on your roster.
No, it's true. I mean, last year for Cleveland, he shot 40%. Last year for Atlanta, so after the trade in 26 games, he shot 33.8%. So he fell off a cliff in Atlanta. They've obviously moved on in another direction. There wasn't a future for him. But in terms of the advanced stats, man, he has managed to be positive box plus minus for like 3 years now. And that's hard to do when you're a high volume shooter. Now, in terms of what you said about he's had multiple 20-point per game seasons, he did. He had a 2-year so he had a how the hell did he get to 20 that year? That's weird. Okay, so 2019, 2020 on the season, he averaged 20.
He also takes tough shots.
He does take a lot of tough shots.
He takes hard shots. His shot diet is tougher than RJ's.
Yes,
it is. Yeah. Karis takes some tough shots. And
which is valuable.
Yeah.
And like, how do you feel about his defense? I don't think he's a terrible defender.
He's not strong. He can't guard like threes. He doesn't have the size.
Is he a better defender than RJ Barrett though?
I think they're about comparable. I think they're about the same. RJ has more potential if he like really tries. I think RJ is better because I think he's stronger.
I mean, I want to look at some of his advanced stats on defense. Per my eye, I don't think he's worse. No, he's better. He's significantly better. 86th percentile in deflections, according to Crafted, 60th percentile in terms of rim defense. That wingspan allows him to actually be a little bit more switchable and versatile. It's a decent block percentage. Yeah, I mean, he's significantly better. If RJ was as good as Karis LeVert defensively, I think I'd have no issues with RJ. I think I understand what you're saying. Positionally, RJ is stronger, and maybe on the ball,
Yeah,
RJ can be
on
very
the block
tenacious.
too. In post defender, I think RJ has a better chance.
I think Karis has a better chance as a post defender because, I mean, granted, okay, like I understand what you're saying. If both of these guys get matched up against Julius Randle, yes, RJ is going to have a better shot. But if one of these guys is the weak side shot blocker helping out, Karis LeVert wins that. If one of them is closing out, Karis LeVert wins that. If one of them is picking up a guard in transition, I think Karis wins that. So I just think he has better overall switchability and utility defensively than RJ Barrett. I think it's not that close, but okay. I've never considered him a good defender, but I've also never considered him like a defensive liability. Like, oh, that's Karis LeVert. Go pick on that guy. That doesn't happen a lot. So, yes, I think this is a decent deal. Yeah. I wonder how it all fits together with Cade plus him plus Jaden Ivey, three guys who need the basketball,
Well,
all kind of fitting in together.
You only need to play two of them at a time.
Well, I think
I don't
here's
think
the
all
thing.
three will be
Like,
on the court
is
together.
he an upgrade on Malik Beasley or is he a downgrade?
Considering, again, Malik Beasley is one of those guys where he would have a great regular season. Playoff time shows up. Oh boy, where'd he go? Where he at?
Yeah.
Disappearing act.
Yeah. What do you think about the Clippers signing Brook Lopez, 2 years, $18 million?
I think they could have got him cheaper. I think they could have got him cheaper.
Yeah.
He's done.
This is
He's done.
$9 million. Very difficult player to play defensively.
And he's only getting slower.
He is getting slower. He is a good stretch big. This is probably, yeah.
If that's a player option, horrible trade. Horrible
I
deal.
feel like, yeah. Luka Garza, 2 year, 5.5 fully guaranteed with the Boston Celtics.
Love it.
Another slow-footed guy, kind of replaces on the cheap what they were losing with Cornette. Obviously, they're still the highest paid salary in the league. They were not going to bring back Cornette. The Spurs poached him away. I think the Spurs are rocking this offseason because I think Cornette's actually a lot better than people think. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 4 years, $62 million with the Atlanta Hawks. Thoughts? Plus a player option and a trade kicker.
I think the deal's a good deal. I think it's a good deal. But when you look at the deal, who's better? Him or Dorian Finney-Smith?
Him. Because I'm partial because he's Canadian. 1, because Shea's cousin. 2, and he's younger. 3.
No, I'm talking about this next season. Who's better?
I don't know because Nickeil is still young. Like, I don't know if Nickeil is like getting better. I don't know if DFS is going to get worse.
I think it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I don't think it's by much, but I think it's him. I think it's a good deal. I think the Hawks can be really good.
Do you realize DFS is like 32, right?
Yeah, I know.
So 32-year-old wing, and I'm pretty sure Nickeil is like 26.
I'm just talking about next season. But Atlanta, I think Atlanta can be really good if they don't do everything around Trae Young thing again. Like when he's on the court, sure, but I think they need to lower his minutes. And I think they need to experiment with lineups that he's not in because they're going to have very good defensive units when he's off the court.
Right. Dorian Finney-Smith signed a 4-year deal, right?
Yes.
So that's locked up through 32 to age 36. That contract is going to age like milk. I hate signing these contracts with these guys who are 32 to like 4 or 5 year deals because I know I'm like it's a ticking clock. It's like a landmine or like a ticking time bomb where I'm like I don't know when that cliff is coming, but I know it's coming and I know it's somewhere close. So it's like maybe he's good for a year, maybe he's good for 2 years, but now what? Now I'm holding albatross, injuries, Achilles tears. Like this shit all goes up with age, right? And yeah, I mean, he hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. Dorian Finney-Smith has played a combined 63 games in the last 2 years. The year before that, he played 63 games. So, like, yeah,
Yeah.
No, wait. No, that's not true. He played 63 games. I'm mistaken. So he played 63 games last year between two teams, Brooklyn and LA. 68 games the year before, and the year before that was 26 games. The year before that was 40 games. No, I apologize because he's gotten traded so much. I'm misreading it. So no. So he's played 63 games, 68 games, 66 games the last 3 years. I apologize. That's not terrible injury luck, but that's also not great.
Yeah, but he's also, I think, started in his career later. Like he didn't come into the league at 18, right? He's
He was 23.
He was 23, and he's not a high minutes guy. I think he'll age pretty decently.
Yeah.
Like he's not high usage, he's not 35 minutes a night.
Yeah.
He's
and I mean,
like
last season with the Nets, he shot 44% from three. With the Lakers, he shot 40% from three. On the year, is 41% 3-point shooter. 41% 3-point shooters get paid. And that's actually what's making me think about Ochai Agbaji right now. And I'm like, shit.
If no news on him yet.
Right. So I'm like, are they going to treat him like this fluke season he just had? You're rolling the dice with Ochai, right? If you bet wrong, like let's just say he shot like 40+% from three last year, right? This is after a couple of seasons of struggling a lot. If Darko believes that he has really turned a corner as a shooter and this is just who he is from now on, I really don't think I'm going to be mad at 3 years 35, 3 years 36, 3 years 39 even. I wouldn't be too mad at that because $13 million right below the mid-level. Ochai Agbaji, solid player. Perfect. But if he comes out next year and he bets on himself and he works himself into another season at 40 plus, now things get a little bit more complicated. Now things go into scary territory. Now things get into 3 years 70. And now we're like, fuck, we might not be able to keep him. So I'll understand either way if the Raptors choose to roll this out because they don't want to take the poison pill provision and sign him early. But man, if this guy comes out and he's playing 25 minutes a night and Grady Dick is struggling, like you could be signing your third string guard because really that's what he is.
For the record, if we're going to be good next year, he's probably going to have to play 25 minutes a night. If the goal is to win, he has to play over Grady.
But that's crazy to me though, right? Like you sank a lottery pick into Grady. And I understand someone sank a lottery pick into him, and 15 and 14 and 13 are not differentiated by much, but he is significantly older than Grady. Like by 3 years, I'm pretty sure he's 3 years older than Grady. So it's like if you lose faith in Grady right now, like
I'm not saying to do that. What I'm saying is we all know who's going to help us win games next year. It's Ochai Agbaji. There is no way Grady's going to be a better defender than Ochai next year. It's no way possible.
I don't even think Ochai's that good defensively.
Yeah. But Grady's that bad. But Grady's that bad.
Right. Yeah. I think maybe the addition of Colin Murray Boyles, right? And Mobo. And
really play both of them.
That's
crazy. That is crazy.
It'll be really fun.
Yeah, throw him and Scotty. Throw them out there together.
Oh yeah, have you heard the rumors that the Raptors are currently in the Ben Simmons market?
I'm not mad at that. Minimum, if it's just a minimum,
Ben Simmons, dude, no shooting at all. So forget Jonathan Mobo taking 2 threes a game. Forget Colin Murray Boyles and trying to not airball threes in the corner. We're talking about a guy who doesn't shoot threes at all.
Yeah, no, you're
doesn't screen well for anybody and has to occupy the exact.
He's a better defender than all of them, though.
Oh yeah, he's he is. But I mean, if Mobo takes one more step up, I could actually see Mobo being a better defender than Ben Simmons next year. Yeah, and plus, like I also consider like the element of this is our locker room and that's Ben Simmons, and this is our locker room and that's Ben Simmons, and this is our locker room and that's Ben Simmons. You get my point? Like I don't want that guy within 20 miles of this team. Like I would file a restraining order. Him, Zion, stay the fuck away. I'm good on that, bro.
Listen,
I'm good.
If you play CMB and Mobo together, we're getting AJ DeBonso. I'm calling it now.
That might be a cheat code. That might be actually the Raptors' like entire modus operandi. Like that might be just what they're thinking. Like if we run out a lineup of Jakob Poeltl, Colin Murray-Boyles,
Ooh.
Jonathan Mobo,
Scotty Barnes,
Scotty Barnes,
Jamal Shed.
and Jamal Shed. This could be the worst spacing lineup in NBA history.
Yeah.
It's like
worse than the 70 Celtics.
Oh, so much worse.
With no 3-point line.
Oh my God. It could be so bad. And then what if off the bench you bring only offensive players who can't guard a pylon? So you bring RJ, IQ, Grady, right? Colin Castleton.
And you know what? You say Ulrich, run wild.
Yes. Deliberate sabotage. There we go. There's your sabotage. Okay.
What do you tell Brandon Ingram? What do you tell Brandon Ingram, just out of curiosity?
What do you tell Brandon Ingram? We need you to sit this one out here.
You know what? We're going to need you. You know, we said you're going to just sit out like the remainder of the season. Yeah. You're going to need to sit out this whole season too.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. Oh, Trent. What? No. I like this guy a lot. Trendon Watford is a good player. 2 years, $5.3 million with the Philadelphia 76ers. This is what he was worth? What? Man, this is the league telling you what Jonathan Mobo and dudes like that are actually worth. Holy fuck. I like him. 5.3 for 2 is nuts. Jordan Clarkson expected to sign with the Knicks.
It was like 1 year, 3.6.
Yikes. Taurean Prince, 2 years, 7.5 to return to the Milwaukee Bucks. Well, I guess they're contenders now. Okay. And
that was an overpay. I don't know why they gave him that
Mason
much.
Plumlee, your most hated player in the NBA, I'm assuming. 1 year, $3.6 million for the Charlotte Hornets. So
solid.
The Charlotte Hornets have signed a center.
Yep.
Thank God.
There's a shift. It's a power shift.
Luke Kennard, 1 year, $11 million. The Atlanta
People
Hawks.
keep giving this guy money, and I don't know what he's done for anybody.
He shoots threes, man. That's what he does.
Okay.
Nice one saying, bro, have we signed anyone yet?
No.
We might. Hold on.
If you're Ochai Agbaji, which contract are you holding up to say, see?
I think I'm probably holding up Corey Kispert's contract and Dorian Finney-Smith's contract together and saying I'm younger than one and I'm better than the other. 1 year, $7 million deal for the Atlanta Magic for Tyus Jones.
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah.
He's better than Cole Anthony.
I think, yeah, I like him a lot better than Cole Anthony for sure. Atlanta is sending a 2027 second round pick via Cleveland and cash to Minnesota to acquire Nickeil Alexander via a sign and trade for 4 years, $62 million. So it's a sign and trade. Interesting. And they just absorb him into cap space. And I guess the sign and trade allows them some sort of cap maneuverability, and the second is just tossed in for fun. Interesting. Did you know that the Raptors signed and traded Chris Bosh to the Miami Heat, and also Kyle Lowry to the Miami Heat?
The Cavs did the same thing when the Big Three formed.
Yeah, I always felt like that sign and trade was so that the teams that were losing these players would not sue or would not complain to the league.
What did they get? What did we get though?
I don't remember who the first round pick was now that I'm thinking about it, but we did get a first round pick for it. I'd love to think about who that player was. It might have been.
We held on to Lowry too long. Just reminiscing.
Yeah. RDM Anthony saying, "I wish we drafted Tyrese Proctor." Yeah, me too. 6'5" guard could actually pop into a very viable, I would consider viable archetype. Could be a nothing burger though, for sure.
Yeah, Jordan Clarkson, 1 year, $3.6 million. I don't know why the Bucks gave Taurean Prince Oh, it's 2 years, 7.1 million. Cool. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
it was
yeah,
1
yeah,
year.
yeah.
Okay, I
They
was like,
they
what the
basically
hell?
signed him to a 2-year minimum. Paradise Lost saying the Raptors signed nobody. True. Tariq, who's better, Woj or Shams? Woj. Lowry fell off following year. We traded him. So how exactly did we get fleeced? Good question. The grand prize of that deal was taking on Goran Dragic's money and also getting Precious Achua. That's what we
Precious Achiuwa.
got.
Yes.
We pretty much salary dumped both those players in short order, by the way.
Yep.
And Goran Dragic, I believe we added a first round pick to get off of him.
It was the
So,
Thaddeus Young trade. It was the Thaddeus Young trade where we traded our first rounder and moved down in the draft.
yep.
So,
Yep.
and Thaddeus Young did nothing for us.
Right. And I actually think Goran Dragic is a better player than Thaddeus Young.
And then we
Hot
saw
take.
what Precious Achiuwa became.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? In the playoffs, when we were struggling super hard, what do we need more than anything? A Goran Dragic type. I'm not even trying to present like Goran Dragic as like some sort of like great Slovenian hope. Notice how I sidestepped Great White Hope there. So I'm not even trying to present him as,
But he's a playoff performer.
Yes, he is.
He's one of the rare players that crank it up at playoff time.
And Scotty loved him. Scotty loved Goran. Like he was great for him. Like honestly, if I was the Raptors, I would have straight up like been to Goran. Listen, we're rebuilding around Scotty right now.
And
I
for,
know
and
it's
for the guy who said that comment, how did we get fleeced? Well, we just answered that question. But also, what could you have gotten for Lowry 1 year prior?
I don't think you want to trade a franchise legend. As much as I reject this thinking
I'm
when it comes to
not
Fred.
saying again, I'm just saying there's just a pattern of behavior.
Yeah. But
We
here's the
are
thing.
where we are for a sequence of events going back like 6 years.
Okay, here's the question. Do teams, how long is the memory of people? Like that's one of my big beefs with social media is I feel like we have a very, very quick amnesia about shit that just happened. Like it's almost like, oh,
Lowry's
this guy
forever.
got murdered.
Lowry's
Like,
memory's forever. Lowry's is forever.
no, that's not what I mean. I mean, like if you do something bad to a particular player, how long do you bear the consequences of that bad action? So
Bad
for
is
instance,
longer. Bad is longer than good is.
typically I hold that to be true. Yeah. So for instance, what the Heat did with Lowry, where they kind of just stopped talking to him and then they shipped him off to Charlotte, and then he didn't want to be in Charlotte. Do you remember? And then
Yeah,
he left Charlotte and he ended up in Philly with Nick Nurse. Okay. So that's fiasco where they sort of dumped him. They signed him, then they dumped him. How much does that cost them when they're negotiating with the next free agent? Or when Damian Lillard is looking and saying, do I want to be there or not? Does that cost them at all?
Okay. But here,
like what about Milwaukee and Drew Holiday and how they traded him for a bucket extra, you know, I mean, honestly, for a bucket of extra crispy, but they didn't warn him. They didn't tell him he wanted to be there. What about what we did with DeMar, where we told him, hey, you're not getting traded because the deal's off. And, you know, the next, I think 2 days later, the deal got shipped off. And
okay, but here's the devil's advocate. Post DeMar, where has kids glove feelings, coddling, you know, Mother Teresa, where has that gotten us? We like you, we'll pay you more.
I think the Raptors are operating. No, I hear what you're saying. I think the Raptors are operating from the place of, listen, we're already operating at a slight disadvantage because we're the only non-American market in the NBA. We can't be assholes too. Okay. And I think that it's really important. I think it's really important. Something I'm realizing about the panel, right? Like, I get away with a lot of shit on the panel. Straight up. Like, I don't know if you watch the panel much, but like, I'll be total jackass to a lot of people.
Yeah, but I think you're playing a character. Like you gotta be, you can't be fucking drywall.
Right. And I mean, I'm also not going to take shit from people. And I'm also not totally used to being in a situation where I'm being, you know, I'm not totally in control. So, you know, learning experience for me. My point is, at some point, if I bring too much of a headache, I'll be gone.
Yeah.
I'll totally be gone because I'm not Ticket. I'm not Legend of Winning.
No headache, if you bring no headache, if you bring no drama, you also might be gone.
That is true. So you have to strike a balance in the middle of, being assertive and aggressive and, making sure that you're not spending entire episodes being walked all over and looking like, you don't matter, but you also can't spend the entire episode yapping and screaming at people and telling them to shut the fuck up, because at some point people get sick and tired of you, and you do have to play that sort of delicate. So at the same time, don't want to be pushed over by every agent in the league, right? Because then you develop a bit of a reputation as that's the easy mark. But you also don't play hardball with every single GM and every single agent in the league, because they'll be like, it's already hard enough for me to convince my client to go to Toronto. And I understand when people hear that, and I've always rejected that notion that, like, it shouldn't be, but it is. And I think that the current climate of America US relations as it pertains to trade, tariff, tax, all that stuff, it's just added another layer of hostility between these two countries, which is actually making that border seem much bigger than it really is. Because that border, it's security, fentanyl, all this stuff, tariffs, companies, American, even if you want to consider the socio, cultural, ramifications of the Drake and Kendrick beef, all of this is just magnifying the fact you're not in America anymore. This is a different country. And I think for a little while there, I mean, I know it's always been a different country, but for a little while there, you almost forgot. Barack Obama, it was very peaceful. It was really just very peaceful, right? And yeah, and I even feel like Trump's first term, it didn't feel that hostile because I think all of his attention was on Mexico. But yeah, now it just feels like it's really a different country. And these borders are totally arbitrary, right? Culturally speaking, I don't feel some huge, huge, huge difference between Detroit and Toronto. Like, whatever, right? It's not that big. Weather is not that big. You know what I mean? I don't feel lost when I'm here. I certainly didn't feel some huge culture shock when I came here, from the States. But when people start to stress that border and overstress that border as a talking point and as a point of political rift, now it's like, okay, now I'm really going to another country. And now the weather kind of bothers me. And now the taxes kind of bother me too. So that's sort of the where I'm at with this, which is like, it's not a great environment to be negotiating as the NBA's lone Canadian team.
Also, when you've been like a pushover the entire time, or perceived as everyone gets their contract, everybody gets paid here, and
Right.
then you finally put your foot on, RJ's gonna be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, why am I the one getting squeezed?
Yeah, because now it's like, okay,
Right.
I'm
No,
upset.
I agree with
I'm leaving.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So there's going to be a casualty. The first guy is going to be a casualty of war. So to speak.
I agree with you. No, I agree with you. And it's always going to be that way with these guys with like, it's comparative, right? Because like you're looking at these people, and hold on, let me just see if there's notifications here.
Man, I'm scared to see that Ochai contract. I'm scared.
It could be bad. It could be really bad. But I mean, we are now 4.5 hours into free agency and not one word about the Raptors, minimum contract, nothing.
I'm actually happy. I'm happy they just didn't throw money at the wall. I'm just happy.
They don't have money to throw. They have nothing to throw. They can't do anything.
So how would they pay Ochai?
That's different. Negotiating with your own agent, negotiating with your own pending free agent.
Okay, can I ask you this? Realistically, considering where D'Angelo Russell was, did you really think he'd get this little?
Yeah, I did.
I think he's borderline minimum to me. He's that bad of a defensive player, and I don't.
So you mean, did I think he would get this much, not this little?
No, but he still has some name recognition.
So what? What does that mean? What does that do for me?
No, I agree.
What's that doing for me?
Maybe
Westbrook
I'm
has
traumatized with all the contracts we've given that I'm seeing it through our lens. But yeah, reality sets in.
So you're saying that he got overpaid or underpaid? I'm confused.
No. I think they could have given him even less.
Oh, okay. Maclu at saying, could we afford Ayton?
Why the hell would we want him? Why would we want him?
Why? But the Portland Trailblazers bought him out, which was very surprising, by the way. Very crazy, right? That they bought him out because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was an expiring. So that's how little value DeAndre Ayton must have had around the league, that he couldn't net you a single pick, nothing. You would have had to attach picks to get rid of that guy.
Why would anybody want him for that price?
He's not a bad player.
Bro, at that price, it's a
As an
fireable offense.
Hold on, as an expiring though. Could the
Okay.
Raptors not have traded for him?
What,
RJ Barrett
what
for
would we get? What
DeAndre
would we
Ayton.
get? What would we get for taking him?
Well, this is the thing. They didn't want to take back salary, and that's all anyone was willing to offer them. So like if the Raptors would, and this is the kind of the point, right? It's like I'm trying to get people to understand like what is actual valuation here, because again, I'm framing this from my own CFA background. Like I'm framing this from my own finance background. I look at RJ Barrett, I look at DeAndre Ayton, I see similarly valued players. I don't care which one I like and which one I don't like. I like RJ for the record, and I don't like Ayton for the record. Dominating might be the dumbest nickname in the world. I can't stand this guy. I wouldn't want him on my team personally. It's nothing even that personal. It's
Me
just like,
neither. Me neither.
yeah, it's just, I'm not, I think he's soft. I think, he doesn't really stretch it out to three very much. He's very skilled. He's definitely more valuable archetype. He's definitely a much better defender than, RJ Barrett. He fills a much, much greater position of need. He is much more portable than RJ Barrett. He was, in fact, the starting center on a team that went to the finals, just what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Not that long ago, right? I just feel like maybe his reputation kind of precedes him. There's this idea that he's kind of lazy, that that he kind of puts in minimal effort. I feel like that's the worst reputation to get in the league. That's why I fought so hard against Scotty Barnes' work ethic issues, allegations 2 years ago. Because like you don't get past that one, right?
But
I
you
think there was
watch
like
him
some.
play, and then you're like, "That's bullshit." You watch him play; he may be struggling, but effort is not in question with him.
Yeah,
Ayton, you watch Ayton play, and you're like, "Why is this guy outworking you? You're better than this guy."
yeah. RDM Anthony said RJ is way better than Ayton. Here's the thing: he's not way better than Ayton. They're both in the same boat, and that's what I'm trying to tell y'all. If the Raptors really wanted to get off of RJ's money ahead of next year, because again, right now the complication is very simple. The Raptors have 3 players that are extension eligible right now, and that is RJ Barrett, Ochai Baji, Jakob Pertl. If they all sign extensions at dollar amounts that are greater than they're currently signed to, now, first of all, it's worth noting Ochai will definitely sign a deal worth more than 6 million, 7 million, whatever he's making right now. But RJ and Jakob, it's not clear if they're going to get a hike on their pay. But hypothetically, if RJ gets 30, Jakob gets 25, Ochai gets 15, you are fucked cap-wise. Now you suddenly have to trade Emmanuel quickly, or you're going to be a luxury tax team, potentially pushing apron, right? So at this point, for the Raptors side, it's much easier for them to have Ayton on their books than Barrett. Number one, he fills a far greater position of need because you're stacked with wings and you don't have bigs. And it also helps that Ayton is expiring. So all of those extensions don't actually matter because he'll be off the books by the time Jakob's extension kicks in, and he's not going to make anywhere near as much on his next extension. That's what I'm trying to divide. So if you just watch RJ and you watch Ayton, you say RJ's better. I get you. I understand that. Maybe you feel that way. RJ's a little bit younger. He's better. But in terms of as an asset, you have to factor in the contract length, contract value, positional size, portability, all those things that I think most people just don't factor in. They just don't factor those things in. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just don't think people care. And those things all matter.
Anyways, Rob, I'm out.
All right, man. Peace.
We'll all be looking forward to. I don't think it's going to happen today. Raptor signing. I don't think it's going to happen tonight, but we'll see. And I expect.
Who do you want them to get?
I don't know, because with Masai gone, I really don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know. Because before it was like, yeah, we're going to be competitive, and Masai wants a big fish, this and that. Now everything's up in the air.
I mean, I don't think they're moving off of the idea of wanting a big fish.
How many big fishes are available? And I don't think selling the farm, whatever, and how valuable you think our farm is for Giannis is worth it. I really don't. I really don't think it.
Yeah.
Getting the entire. What's the point? Giannis is just going to be in the situation he was in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, I'm gonna check out Spot Track here and see if I can piece this together and see who is available and who the Raptors would want. Okay, peace, Coach Mo. All right, shout outs to the 430 of you who are in here at 10:30 waiting on a Raptors news break. Now, in terms of what the Raptors can do, I think Spot Track is going to help us answer that question right now. Shout outs to the people on Spot Track. They run a tight ship. Okay, so let's check this out and see what's up while we wait to see which minimum contract guy the Raptors end up signing. Okay. What the hell? Okay. Pull this up. Share. Free agents. Okay. So these are the deals that have been agreed to so far. That is Kyrie Irving, the extension at $39 million. Nikhil Alexander, 15.5. Dorian Finney-Smith, 12.5. If I sort these for annual average, you'll get the full window into it in terms of who was paid how much term right over there. I think this is very helpful for sort of scaling contract value. So, for instance, Ty Jerome just signed for less than Davion Mitchell. Make it make sense. That's insane. And also, there's no state tax in Florida. Who the fuck were the Heat negotiating with when they signed that crazy ass contract? Davion Mitchell, fine player. $6 million is a top based on how he played last year. These guys are fucking crazy. Negotiating with absolutely nobody. Okay, Luke Kennard, $11 million. He got more because it's a 1-year deal. That's the only reason. Luke Cornett. Huh. 2 white guys. Both Luke. Both $11 million pretty much. That's funny. Sam Merrill, 9. Ty Jerome, 9. So I think Ty Jerome is probably, I mean, depending on how you feel about Ty Jerome, obviously he did not play well in the playoffs, and that really hurt his contract value. But there were a lot of talks about this guy being an 18, 15, $17 million guy this year. Trey Jones, $8 million. Clint Capella, 7. And we start to slide down, and you see what a fucking discount Day'Ron Sharpe is. Day'Ron Sharpe is worth, in my humble opinion, twice what Davion Mitchell is, and he signed for half of what Davion Mitchell got. That is nuts. D'Angelo Russell, also, once again, better player than Davion Mitchell, in my opinion, but he gets 6. Paul Reed, sneaky, kind of still believe in Paul Reed a little bit. So, that's interesting. Garrett Temple, Jeff Teague, Taurean Prince, Aaron Holiday, these are all veteran minimum contracts for the most part. Trendon Watford, I think, is sneaky underrated prospect, man. Like, I don't remember how old Trendon Watford is, but all I know is every single time I watch Trendon Watford play, that's an NBA player. Like, that's a legit NBA player. He's going to play NBA rotation minutes. Getting a rotation player under 30 for the minimum is a highway robbery. That's what it is. That's highway fucking robbery. Okay, now let's see who's available still. Here's who's available, and this is what their previous annual average is, and we're going to sort for previous annual. Okay, so Malcolm Brogdon from the Washington Wizards. The Raptors have not a lot of money to play with, so you're going to have to, I believe Duncan Robinson, this has already been sort of worked out with the Heat from what I've heard. Dennis Schroeder, I think there's some talk that he could end up in Sacramento. That's sort of the last hubbub I heard, or the last scuttlebutt. I don't know what the right word is, but yes, that's the water cooler talk. Miles Turner more than likely is going back to Indiana. If it's not to Indiana, they're facilitating sign and trade with him to somewhere for something good coming back to them. They may want to move off of him based on how they feel about Obi Toppin or whoever's coming up behind him. But it would be a huge loss for a team that just made it to the finals, who just lost their starting point guard. And frankly, losing Miles Turner would just be a signal to me that they're tanking next year and they don't have their pick. So, oh, wait, never mind. They do have their pick. My bad. You see? Fuck, this team knew exactly what they're doing. Tim Hardaway Jr., where will he go? What will he be worth? Anybody's guess. Duncan Robinson, we already talked about. Jordan Clarkson, likely going to the Knicks. I don't know why it says his previous team is the Knicks, because his next team is the Knicks, but that's wrong. Previous team, I believe, was the Utah Jazz, but okay. Dennis Schroeder is continuing on his journey around the NBA. As I mentioned, I think he's going to Sacramento. Mo Wagner, he is an unrestricted free agent. Honestly, this would be a great signing for the Raptors. Mo Wagner, Al Horford, these are the guys. Like, if you can get one of these guys, it'd be great. Where are they probably going to go? Trey Lyles. We got to move further and further down the list. Hey, everyone. Precious Achiuwa is available, but Masai Ujiri is gone. Who else? Who else? Who else could be available for the Raptors in terms of final roster spots? Kyle Lowry would be great. Taj Gibson, probably not. James Johnson, no. Tristan Thompson, I get it, actually, weirdly enough, in terms of, just a guy in the, just for morale, right? Like, if you want Colin Murray Boyles or, John Mobo to feel better about their jump shot, you can just bring Tristan Thompson out there and have him fire off some free throws, air ball, and be like, see, this is what happens to your NBA career if you never form a jump shot. You go and win a championship. Okay. DeAndre Jordan is available. Veteran big, similar jump shot issues. Is there a stretch big or a backup guard? See, again, the Raptors do have some stuff that they need. Obviously, Quentin Grimes in this group of players, Quentin Grimes, Thomas Bryant, really just stick out to me as guys who fit, guys who have like experience. I don't know what Quentin Grimes is going to be signed for, but he's a restricted free agent. Typically, teams don't throw money at those guys, and there aren't a lot of teams to throw money. Taylor Horton Tucker, a long desired free agent / trade target of Masai Ujiri. Of course, Masai now gone. A fact that I will remind you at least 2 to 3 times every episode until the end of time, because I'm still kind of sad about it. Jackson Hayes, probably not going to come for the minimum, but, could be a prove 'em type of deal. Sandro Mama Ushkalashvili. If we sign him, I need a. I'm just gonna call him Mamu because that's a lot of syllables. Charles Bassey, another center available. Delano Banton. I really like Gershon Yabusele. This would be a guy that I would go for. Gershon Yabusele would be a guy that I would 100% be targeting. Caleb Houston will be another guy that I would be targeting. I just don't think these guys are available. Jericho Sims, unrestricted free agent. Not a fan, but whatever. Josh Minot, 100%. If I had any money, I will put into Josh Minot right now. And again, like, I don't think I'm wrong about this guy. I think he's good. Jeff Doughton, again, like, I think Jeff is a better player than some of the guys that you're bringing into this team. But does he really move the needle for you? Am I still in club free Jeff Doughton? Not really. Not really. Brandon Carlson. Ah, yes. Our once lost, stretch big. Clearly, we don't like shooting because we passed on Maxime Renault. So we clearly just don't give a shit about this player type, but he is apparently available. Jalen Hood Shafino. Fresh off of being a first round pick, man, if we see any value there. Oscar Tshiebwe, formerly a great basketball player at the collegiate level, hasn't really worked out for him in the NBA. And now we are really getting into Christian Koloko territory. And it's like, would the Raptors take a flyer on bringing Christian Koloko back? Do the Lakers even like him? Could this be a nice little return home? Can he provide a little bit of rim protection for you? I'll tell you, there's a lot of holes on your roster, and shooting at the big position, i.e. Kelly Olynyk, i.e. Marcus All, that ain't there. Nobody can do it. Jakob can't do it. Right now, Shamshi can't do it. Koloko had a little bit of shooting upside, but he hasn't really done it to date. Could I envision a world in which you bring back Koloko on a 1-year minimum and at least you get rim protection from that position, because you don't have it on your roster right now? You don't have real rim protection. Now, is the impetus or is the incentive? No, what's the word? Is the motivation to get Koloko on this team even that high now that Masai's gone? And would Clutch double up? That's something that they try not to do. Koloko merely impedes the progress of a client that's already on their books, which is Ulrich Shamshi. Maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe they just see it as redundancy. Maybe they'd rather take a flyer somewhere like Charlotte. So we'll see where and how these other guys get signed up. And maybe if the Raptors are lucky, they never are really in these situations. I'll give you some deep targets that I really like. Keaton Wallace is amazing. I know his trainer obviously speaks really highly of him, but I watched him play a lot. I love him. I think Keaton's awesome. He is the brother of Cason Wallace, just in case anyone didn't figure that out. I did last year in the draft cycle like Isaiah Crawford. I thought he was a really good 3-and-D type of wing player who had some OG-isms in him. You know, it's like to put that. Ty Washington just does not fit in terms of what the Raptors do. Imani Bates, maybe like take a flyer on Imani Bates and see if you can tap into that superstar potential that he flashed when he was 15, 16 years old. Really, at this point, I really don't think that Christian Koloko is the worst idea. Yeah, still a fan of Christian Koloko. Jeremiah Robinson Earl might not be the worst idea either. I'm just looking at bigs, man. I'm looking at bigs. JT Thor. Josh Minot's like a big wing, you know. PJ Tucker in terms of like veteran leadership if he's coming back. Yeah, it's unfortunate you don't have cap space or really any mid-level-ish offer to work with, because there's a world in which you could sign 3 guys and probably fit them all under the mid-level, and they'd be like very decent players, young players. So you could go for Day'Ron Sharpe. If the Nets were like, we're not paying more than $6 million, could you have gotten Day'Ron Sharpe for $6 million and he just 6.5, I don't know, 7. I don't know what their hard cutoff was to keep him. I don't know how badly they wanted to keep him. So let's just say you get Day'Ron Sharpe for 7 of your mid-level, and then you use some other exception to go sign Josh Minot, and then you use the rest of that mid-level to get Caleb Houston. Did I just stack up 3 players that Scotty's already comfortable with and 2 players that he already played with at Montverde on the same team? Yeah, I did. Did I just address your backup big position? Yeah, I did. Did I just get you a really good shooter off the bench who has like real scalable upside as a shooter in Caleb Houston? Yeah, I did. And did I just get you a positional toolsy defender that has like some freakish athleticism that Darko can really work with in Josh Minot? Yeah, I did. So I'm just saying, like, you know, not having any money right now is a cost. Like you might think, oh, we got Brandon Ingram, we're great. Or we signed up RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, you know, because we decided to offer players. But this is the cost of not operating. Like, you really don't know how these players are looking at the situation in Toronto. They might look at it as shit. There's open opportunity. Give me some money to get there. $5 million gets me here. 2-year proven deal. I don't know. That's how I would see it. That's how I would see it. That is exactly it. It's an opportunity cost. Michael, that's exactly it. It is the opportunity cost, right? It's so funny. My girlfriend and I have had so many debates about opportunity cost. It is nuts. So after getting sick and tired of explaining opportunity cost, and I'm just going to tread carefully because like sometimes she tunes into these lives and she'll be like, why are you talking shit about me? I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying, like the other day, I pulled up a 3 Little Pigs animation on the value of preparedness and hard work. Rob, take your motherfucking Puma hat off. You do what we tell you, duck. You're stubborn and condescending and rude. Clippers in 5. No wonder you're so mad. Okay. So, yes. It is very, very important to keep your house in order. This is the takeaway of 3 Little Pigs, right? And I don't know, y'all have heard the 3 Little Pigs story. I hope most of us did when we were growing up. Yeah, the Raptors are the first pig. They're the little brother. They built the whole fucking thing on straw. Yeah, they may not have exceeded their property limits, staying under the luxury tax, but this whole thing, like, it's not built to sustain. It's not built. So what they're doing, I hope, is just really investing in development. And to what I will say is development works better with better prospects. If I can pour 1,000 hours of development expert hours into a better athlete who already has better habits, who doesn't need to be convinced how to work hard, who's already the right size, like, again, the highest upside outcomes are players with the perceptive potential tag, right? The Raptors seem hell bent on doing the two stupidest things. One, they bring in this development staff that maybe isn't the strongest coaching staff, but they have a very, very good idea of how to spot, develop players, build up habits, build up chemistry. And then on the other side, in the draft, they go for lower outcome prospects. So it's like, if you're so good at development, why not take a flyer on the freakish athletes? Why not take a flyer on? And again, like, I hear it, right? I hear it. I'm cooking myself because there's a part of me that's just like, didn't you just do an episode with a neuroscientist when she told you this is what I look for in a prospect and this is what predicts success? Chucky Hepburn is a very interesting player. There was a conversation that he had at his draft party right after, he agreed to sign the two-way deal with the Raptors. And he was talking to Darko Rajakovic, and he said, all I needed was one opportunity, and you guys gave it to me. I won't let you down. I don't know, like, how much weight you put into words and actions and all that stuff, but I've watched Chucky Hepburn for a little bit. I did not have him top 65, but now I think about him, and I really do. He's like a top 45-ish box plus minus guy across the country. Grew a lot over 5 years. Kind of a rags to riches development story. You get it. You get it. You're bringing in another human being who has the same story as Jonathan Mobo, as Elijah Martin, as Colin Murray Boyles, right? These aren't necessarily those. They were crowned in high school. R.J. Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick. This is a completely different type of player. This is your Fred VanVleet. This is the spirit of Fred and the spirit of Norm. Your late bloomers, your overlooked guys. They were undersized. And to that I say, Caleb Houston, Day'Ron Sharp, and Josh Minot are not undersized. So all things being equal, unless you're going to convince me that those guys just don't work as hard as these scrappy underdogs who have vertical limitations and athletic limitations and don't jump very high or whatever, I don't understand why we're trying to build up the next Fred VanVleet. Personally, it's just not the most valuable archetype. And Fred VanVleet was a dog defensively and a total, like, Matt Hogg said, Bill Simmons pitched this. You lost me at Bill Simmons. Yeah. So again, this is a rise over run thing. There's nothing about Tyus Jones, Austin Reeves, or any of these guys, frankly, Fred VanVleet, that says they're supposed to be successful, and yet they all are successful. Matt Strus is successful, right? Ben Wallace is successful. You look for these predictors of success. You look for hallmarks of success. So, we had Nick Thomas on the other day, and he said he really cares what a guy's GPA is. Cool. I care about that too, to some extent. You look at progression in terms of the free throw shooting, and you talk to people about their work habits and all that stuff. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, Elijah Martin is still going to be 6'1". Still going to be 6'1". And Sion James is still going to be 6'6". So if you really, really trust yourself as a development staff, and Tyrese Proctor is still going to be 6'5". So and Maxime Renault is going to be 7 feet tall. Here's a really funky fucking stat. Among Power 5 conferences over the last 25 years, there are 3 players who've averaged 20 points, 10 rebounds with 53s in a season. Do you know who they are? Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony, and Maxime Renault. It's just 3. Just 3 guys. You pass on that guy at 40. Now, I have no idea if he's at 39. I have no idea if he's going to be really good. All I know is that's a valuable archetype. And if you're telling me that you really, really care about, progression, well, he showed that for 4 years. And if you're telling me you want your bigs to be able to play make, well, he showed that. He had a near 30% usage last year with an 11% turnover percentage. That matters to me. I just feel like we outthought ourselves on that pick because we wanted to go for the Fred VanVleet clone. And it's just like, do we not care? If you were going to go get Hepburn, why? Do you really believe that Elijah Martin is going to turn into the next Drew Holiday, but slightly undersized version? Do you really think you're cloning Case and Wallace here? Based on what? He was terrible in his last 2 games for Florida. He might have been the third or fourth best player. I see the upside. I see the potential. I really hope he's successful. But I have lost my patience. No, I haven't lost my patience with this team. I've lost my faith that this team just does the right thing. There used to be times where I used to think, no, I think that's wrong, but they did it, so maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they know something I don't, or maybe they're seeing something I don't. This is the first draft where I've just refused. I refused. I refuse. I'm going to support the hell of these guys. I can't wait to watch them in Summer League. I hope they're really, really good. My wish right now as a Raptor fan is that Colin Murray-Boyles is better than Cooper Flagg. Really, really my hope. My hope is that Elijah Martin comes out and like is first team all rookie and is like a beast defensively and just knocks it out of the park. My hope is that Chucky Hepburn is better than Fred VanVleet because all of that helps the team that I root for. But that doesn't mean I'm blind and stupid enough to think that those are likely outcomes. Those are not likely outcomes. Every scout I talked to, with the exception of 2, had these guys outside their top 55. All of them. And I don't think I talked to a single scout that had Maxime Renault outside their top 35. So it's kind of like, if you're right, amazing. But right now, nobody really thinks you're right. Even with Colin Murray-Boyles. Like, I think most people assumed he was going to go 13, 14. I thought I was being a fucking revolutionary putting him at 8. So Ryan said, just seen Mobo in my 2K server. You mean like you can play Jonathan Mobo in 2K? That's dope. Jack said, I'm telling you, Renault pushed to stay in Cali. I wouldn't be surprised, and I understand that, but he's also from France, and there's an opening for a backup center here. I think there's a chance that's true, though. Like, if he was able to broker a deal, then is Maxime Renault really worth kind of like fracturing your relationship? But in the end, like, it's still your call. Like, you can still draft him. You'll end up doing what the Utah Jazz did, which is you'll probably end up pissing the player off and maybe even pissing off the Kings. But I really don't think that the day is going to come where I'm going to want to do a deal with the fucking Kings. Maybe that's the thing that I don't understand. Diplomacy is not really high on my list of priorities in life. If you can't tell that about me, you might be missing some screws. That's exactly it. So Ulrich last year, I'll go to my grave thinking that he was supposed to go higher and that we pulled some favors to get him, or they pulled some favors to get him, or we were owed a favor for the Coloco thing. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me that the youngest player in the draft, who actually was probably for most people like top 45 ish. I know, like, for me, he was around that range. For him to fall, given how he allegedly did really well in most workouts, just didn't make a lot of sense to me. So Steve MC, now we know Messiah's gone. This team can't even make a move tonight. We have no money. Yeah, well, we can make a move for a minimum contract. But I think to anyone out there who's just like, hey, like, what are we doing? I really think we have a few holes we need to address on our roster if we can. And again, the ideal situation is you trade RJ or Ochai or both, ideally, and then you address these by taking a little bit off of the roster that you need and giving them something they need. I don't know a lot of teams that need an RJ Barrett. That's the problem out there. Matt Hogg reminding you, owning you, cooking you with Garrett Temple. Huh. Respect, OG. Jake Fisher suggesting Detroit trading for Malik Monk in a Schroeder sign and trade. There's no way in hell that Detroit is adding Malik Monk, bro. No. I mean, I'm not saying Jake is wrong. He's probably right, but that's crazy. That is crazy. If the Kings deal Malik Monk for Dennis Schroeder, they are insane. I don't know how to explain it to you. Malik Monk is really good. I think Ox is going to crash out when he sees that. I think the Kings' goal in life is to put all the players that I just don't respect on one team. Like, no offense, I like DeMar DeRozan. I grew up a big DeMar DeRozan fan. Jonas Valanciunas, same thing. Domantas Sabonis, same thing. I think I've had conversation with Domantas Sabonis before. The problem with Sabonis, these guys just don't fit. I think they only have one guy left that I really like, and I think the Raptors should trade for him. Keon Ellis. Yeah, go get Keon Ellis. That would be great. I don't know, man. I'm looking at these really dumb teams right now, and there's really just like two. There's two really dumb teams right now. Seems like Sacramento is really dumb, and the Pelicans are really dumb. Murphy for RJ, Grady, and future firsts. That's a lot to pay for Trey Murphy, man. That's true. I like Keegan. Devin Carter, I'm not a huge fan. Rob, do we solve the Barrett fit problem by just having him come off the bench and being one of the best 6 men? Yes, that would solve some problems, but it also creates other problems. So let's just say, hypothetically, you're going to start who in his place? Grady Dick? Well, you still have a defensive liability and have a bigger defensive liability in your starting lineup. Okay. So now let's just say, hypothetically, you're going to start Jacoby Walter. Well, now you have less defense coming off your bench, right? So Barrett creates 2 problems. Number 1, it's pretty ball dominant. Number 2, it's a defensive side. Like, doesn't space the floor nearly as well to be respectable. Like, I think y'all need to, like, if you're having a little bit of amnesia about this, go back and really watch Raptor games and see how often Barrett is closely guarded at 3. I'm not saying when he gets the ball and he rolls it up or whatever, do they late contest? They will. It's the same thing with Scotty, by the way. Neither one of these guys are respected as 3-point shooters right now. So, oh no. Are we at that point of the night? It's take a chance on Bol, to be honest. Yikes. Bill Simmons says the Raptors are one of the top 5 dumb teams now. His last video trashed IQ and BI. He is currently, unfortunately, in the midst of a long feud with Kendrick Perkins, in which Perkins said the Raptors are going to be a top 6 team, and Bill Simmons said, no, they're not. So I hate Bill Simmons for a lot of reasons. One of them is he made me sign with Kendrick Perkins. Let me get some super chats here. We use an unprotected first to get rid of Carroll. I don't remember if it was unprotected, but we did trade away first. I find this free agency class isn't that great anyways. I mean, no, relative to top targets that are never really in play for the Raptors anyway. But in terms of those middle guys, I look at guys like Day'Ron Sharpe. I look at guys like Josh Minot. I look at guys like Trendon Watford. I look at guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Plenty of value here. You could even look at someone like Malik Monk, and he's not a free agent, but if they are open to a trade to get a point guard, I would certainly send one to them for, like, if they were open to Keegan Murray and Malik Monk for Emmanuel Quickley and a pick, I think I would do that. I actually would do that. Same guy, Raptors guy, 86 said, to the tune of Tal Bachman, she's so high. He's Ochai High Abaji watching him dunk king. So I don't know who Tal Bashman, she's so high. So unfortunately, I can't sing this for you. I would sing this for you, but I don't know how to. Araf Haroon, but thank you so much for the super chat. Cam was available. Shake my head. How much for Herb and Murphy? I think given how poorly they're negotiating everything and how poorly they're running things, Joe Dumars and the Pelicans right now, I'm going to assume that Herb Jones is going for about a pick and a half, and Trey Murphy is probably going to be 2 to 3 picks. I think that's probably the going rate. The problem is they're trying to be good suddenly for some reason, so you might have to be vultures, but there's really no point. Like, they're not even going to be vultured, right? Because let's just say they start out the season 1-10. They can't even choose to tank because they gave up 2026, right? So that's the problem. I don't think they're going to trade those guys now. If they do trade them, they're going to trade them for win now upgrades. Good luck offering them a win now upgrade on Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. I don't even think you have a player on your team other than Scotty that can offer that. Brandon Ingram, Brandon Ingram back. Okay, thoughts on gambling issues in the NBA? Yeah, so there's a couple that came up. So one is Malik Beasley. He is being investigated, and that is legit. And obviously, if it's come out as a news report, then it's something, they have something. They wouldn't just, you don't tarnish someone's reputation like that unless you have plenty of evidence already. So, he may not be cooked, but he's already on the grill for sure. In terms of the Gary Payton clip, that's very suspicious, man. That's very suspicious. So it's becoming very frequent. I do blame the league for partnering with gambling companies. You have gone to bed with these companies. You have lost your entire moral fabric and integrity in the process. You have flooded so many houses across your fan base with this problem, which leads to degeneracy, which can potentially lead to, people losing their families, potentially losing their houses. This is an addiction and you're pushing it like it's a good thing. So, if you've ever wondered, this is why we don't do this. We will never do this in a million years. There's no amount of money. I was literally talking to my girlfriend about this yesterday about values, like having certain hard and fast rules of this is a line I don't cross. And the gambling thing, not to virtue signal here, is a bigger problem than you realize. This is not simply Rob is being a snob and doesn't want to take $2,000 a month from said gambling companies. No, I could really use $2,000 a month. I'm not filthy rich. I'm not a billionaire kid. I lost my parents when I was really young. I've had to work for all of this. So yeah, when a company calls and says, we'll give you $2,000 to push gambling, yeah, it's tempting, but it's not, because there's a hard and fast rule. We don't do that. Just like I wouldn't take Marlboro or some cigarette company or even some alcohol company and push that product. Like, it's different when it's an alarm company, it's like, whatever. That's not, you're going to get addicted to alarms, car insurance, car dealerships. No. So that's just an annoying 2-minute thing. But when I'm listening to The Ringer, when I'm listening to, I don't know, Betway or Hello and Welcome, or all of these podcasts are sponsored by betting companies. And if you're wondering how they're able to afford people, how are they able to afford paying podcasters $2,000? They put it everywhere, man. They just put it in front of your face. You ever think, like, I've told this many times, like, when the product is free, you're the product, right? When you go to a casino, what do? You keep stocking up your drinks, right? Why? So you keep gambling. Why? So you lose all your money. But not before you won a whole bunch of money, before you lost all the money, so you'll come back next week and then be like, oh, I can make it back. No, man. No. No, a lot of smart people, no. For the most part, you're going to lose a ton of money and a ton of time and a ton of brain cells and a ton of integrity and a ton of self-respect for yourself gambling. And unfortunately, these players, there's a lot, maybe they think they're smart and they think they can get away with it. Maybe they think one time, who's going to know? I'm not being watched 24/7. I mean, if I'm a player and just I'm at a Thanksgiving and someone's like, I got you for 11 and a half rebounds tomorrow, bro. They just yell it at me because it's all over the place right now, right? And that's my family. That's my dog. That's my cousin. You telling me that I'm not going to rebound harder tomorrow? I put 5 bands on you. That's my rent. That's my rent. Don't let me down. Or, hey, bro, you get what I'm saying. It's just in their fucking faces all the time. It's on Twitter. If you follow your family on Twitter, right? Or Instagram, and you scrolling and they post their pics and they got you 22.5, is that in your mind now? Do you just does your entire family have to agree to not gamble? Or does it only break a line when you like I'm considering the Gary Payton thing, right? Gary Payton is looking up, it's an 11 and a half or 12 and a half point spread between his team and the other team, and his team is at the line and they hit some random three, and the entire time his team's at the line, like they have won. The Warriors have won this game. There's like 5 seconds left and they're up double digits. They're winning this game. There's no reason this guy needs to be on the bench having all the gyrations and movements and all that stuff that he's doing. Okay. But he is. He's freaking out. He's freaking out because they're about to cover. And so the other team goes down and they hit this random ass three. And you're thinking to yourself, why did they take that three? It's very uncustomary for teams to take that three. And also, why is Gary Payton freaking out? So everyone's talking about Gary Payton being a gambling addict or maybe being a degenerate or maybe the league needs to investigate. I would investigate the guy who took the fucking three. They're both probably doing it. And so my question is like, how do I implicate you in this? Right? What if Gary Payton just happens to know that his brother-in-law is a degenerate gambler, and he happens to see that his brother-in-law posted his FanDuel or Prize Picks or whatever picks, and he picked his brother-in-law, Gary Payton, and his team to win 11.5 or 12.5 or whatever. So I'm just saying, like, these things, and I mean, like, obviously I am very much giving these athletes, you know, a lot of benefit of the doubt. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if some of them just be like, I'm going for 50 tonight, you know, like at a party, you just be like, I'm going for 50 tonight. I'm gonna go for 50 tomorrow night or something like that, you know. Oh, I'm gonna bust his ass for like 30. I'm gonna get every rebound tomorrow. So you don't think, like, you just can't even talk because now you got player props, you got win margins. Do you know how many times, like, I thought about it, you know, like the amount of stuff that I find out about athletes, like from trainers, friends, family, like a breakup. Okay. I've known about a few players having a really tough breakup in Raptors land over the last 4 years. Should I just take their unders for the rest of the week? That's inside information. That's technically an advantage. People are always looking for advantages. And when people feel like they have an advantage, that's usually when they bet the big, big bucks, right? That's usually when they bet way more money. Am I trading inside information if I know that X player, let's say Norman Powell, had a breakup? Am I trading inside information by taking his under on points tomorrow? Because I'm assuming or if I know Norman Powell to be like the type of guy who takes his frustrations out on the court, am I playing am I leveraging inside information by taking the over? But these are moral, you know, conundrums. But now when everyone's doing it, you're gonna have shit like this happen. It's just impossible, man. What is wrong with you? Ban. You just can't catch a break, can you? Okay. Michael said, my dad had issues with gambling before I was born, and the stories he tells me would alarm y'all. It's a real addiction, y'all. It's a real addiction. So I believe that a lot of people might see it as, well, I'm just telling them about using my code, but you're putting it in people's faces. Even me having this conversation might make somebody want to do it. So I very much advise you that if you're someone who's thinking about doing it for the first time, please don't. And if you're someone who's been doing it for a long time and you need help, call a helpline. Call a helpline. It's not good for you, man. It's bad for your spirit, bad for your soul. I don't think the Nuggets improved that much. I think they did. I think Bruce Brown is a huge, huge upgrade over who he's replacing, which is Russell Westbrook. And just in terms of like sureness, I don't think he's a more talented player than Russell Westbrook. I just think he's more portable. And I think Cam Johnson has a chance to be better than Michael Porter Jr. I think also he's cheaper, and that's really important. Okay. So in terms of what will the Raptors do, what won't the Raptors do? Honestly, don't expect much. My bet here, hope, whatever, I'm expecting Chris Boucher to be gone. I'm sort of surprised he hasn't already signed somewhere. Like I was expecting him to be a guy who, within a couple hours we're announcing Chris Boucher 10 million 2 years to somewhere. And I think that he has some value around the league for sure. I really do. So I'm surprised he hasn't quite caught on. But if Chris is back on a minimum and that's all we do, whatever, you know. But yeah, it's weird. Like when a guy gets on your roster, you don't think about him too much. When a guy gets waived, like for instance, I'm thinking back, like look at all the guys that have been drafted. Colin Castleton was a collegiate player, right? Joe Wieskamp was a second round pick, right? It's weird when you take a flyer on somebody else's second round. There's a lot of hype, you know. Like I guarantee you, man, they'd be like, if we had signed Trendon Watford right now, someone out there would be like, yo, we are going to the finals. We are going to be the craziest defense ever. Something like that. I don't know. Or if we sign Josh Minot, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to make a hype video about him. Not because I'm hyping up a random, but because I've believed in the guy for like 3 years and I'd just be happy that we signed him. But yeah, like I think when you consider the value of assets like second round picks, undrafted free agent signings like this, trades, ultimately the whole thing is to put together a roster that makes sense. I don't think the Raptors have a roster that makes sense. I would expect them to continue to want to make moves. I don't think any move they're going to make tonight is going to make this roster make sense. But if there is a move that they can make to make this roster make a little bit more sense than it currently does, let us pray that it is a backup center, because I certainly don't feel comfortable going into this season as Scotty Barnes and Colin Murray as my backup centers and Jonathan Mobo. Like that's not cool. Matthew Smolensky. This guy is always so pessimistic. I'm not always so pessimistic, and I encourage you to go back a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10. I'll give fucking 18 months. Really optimistic. Okay. Really optimistic that maybe Emmanuel Quickley can figure it out. Really optimistic that despite my initial trepidations about Grady Dick, that maybe, just maybe, he'll figure out how to play defense. Trust me, I've tried being optimistic. Okay. Do you think ownership is putting the brakes on spending? I think there's internal discussions about like if whether or not a particular threshold is to be met or stayed below. Yeah, obviously they have to agree or disagree to be a tax paying team, and there are ramifications or consequences of being a tax team multiple years in a row. So yeah. Giannis. Oh, this is why you think I'm pessimistic, because you're crazy. Okay. I think Penn is actually far more optimistic than most Rap fans. He just projected them to be a top 6 team. I am. Yeah, and that was prior to Colin Murray Boyles being the pick, in fairness. And I think CMB is one of the better players in this draft, like one of the top 3, 4 immediate help guys. So yeah, there's a world in which this team is just way better. Again, I'll remind you, this team got better last year. They'll have more continuity, more, growth from the young players. The East is weaker. There's a world in which you really just go and win 44 games, 45 games. My only issue, and this is what I'll bring up, is if you do get to the playoffs and you're in a game 7, I don't want a Jakob Poeltl twisted ankle to be the reason you lose that game. That's why I think I need depth. I don't want Jamal Shed not being respected as a shooter to be the reason you lose that game. I don't want RJ Barrett not being able to guard his man to be the reason you lose that game. These are avoidable problems that you can solve on the back end of your roster. I think it's important. So yeah, I'm really hoping they get a stretch big because they don't have a lot of rim protection on this team. Honestly, Jakob Poeltl is a little bit of a weak rim protector. This right now, as currently constructed, is one of the weakest rim protecting teams in the league. Hard to be a good defense if your rim protection is this bad. Scotty Barnes provides a little bit. John Mobo provides a little bit. Ulrich provides a lot of it, but he doesn't play. Jakob Poeltl provides a fair amount. You don't have a one-man rim stopper like a Rudy Gobert. You really don't. You don't have a prolific shot blocker like a Miles Turner or Jaren Jackson. I don't think you have the quality of defender that can single-handedly sort of anchor the back line like an Anthony Davis. You just don't. So what you have is Scotty Barnes and Colin Murray Boyles and Jonathan Mobo. And again, you basically have three players that are kind of the same defensively in a lot of ways. Scotty might provide you with a little bit more rim protection, but again, he's not beastly in this regard. You need some rim protection. Christian Koloko is a really good rim protector. And in Darko's offense, I wonder if he would flourish. Obviously, prior to the blood clot stuff, they had formed a really good relationship with him. I think he would be my first call. I know that sounds really crazy and maybe very uninventive, because maybe I just don't think that we have the cachet to pull in an Al Horford here. But if Al Horford were available, I would certainly be talking to him. I would be looking at sign and trade offers for Jonathan Kuminga because I think he solves a lot of issues too. I would settle for. I don't think I would touch. I think I would look at DeLon Wright too. I think you could use a guy like that or Thomas Bryant. I think you could look at Thomas Bryant too. If he's a minimum guy, you have a contract spot. I feel like the Raptors need to leverage the fact that they have left this backup center spot open for somebody to come and prove it. Jakob is not a super high minute guy. If you have a stretch big like a Thomas Bryant who truly believes that he can come here and be a 15 to 18 minute per game contributor, like I think that's a viable option for a guy who's on a prove it deal. And I think he is, if I'm not mistaken, Thomas Bryant is a former champion, so that's one thing worth noting. He is also 27 years old. He might look a little bit older, but he's only 27 right now. So maybe give him some time with Darko, and boom, now you fill your need at least for a little bit of stretch big. Hushu saying Al Horford hasn't retired yet. No, he hasn't. But Al Horford would be a dream come true. I just don't think he'd come here. But also, like, maybe he would want to come here and mentor a current Florida Gator because Al Horford won a national championship with Florida. Obviously, very familiar with Elijah Martin. Could Elijah Martin be the great recruiter for Al Horford and maybe bring Joakim Noah out of retirement, bring them both back? Yeah, for sure. I think playoff reps are very important. However, when you get there, do you have a shot? And I think having a shot will at least in part come down to your rim protection and your defense. It's going to matter a lot. Anyways, I'm looking forward to Summer League, guys. I will definitely have you guys covered this week or this early this weekend on a video breakdown of Chucky Hepburn, Elijah Martin, Colin Murray Boyles, Amariu, whose name I still can't pronounce. I'm sorry. I'll work on that. Just digging through a lot of film to get through these guys. I like a lot of what I see. I don't like a lot of what I see. So it's not going to be necessarily a dissection of their game, more like what they need to get better. Something similar to watching some of Emmanuel Quickley's film yesterday, I think. I was watching some of his film from a pickup run that he was doing. And, someone I think sarcastically wrote that he's going to be in SGA and Luka conversations next year. And I was just like, pump the brakes. And I was trying to explain why a player who shoots from their chin is probably never going to be that level of player because even though his release finishes in the right place, it starts in the wrong place. And I think that was a fascinating discussion. So I think film breakdowns will be a bigger part of this channel going forward. I think that it's important, to understand the nuances of the game and to slow things down and to make visual understandings of what is a good pass and what is a good read and what are guys missing and what are guys not missing. And maybe it's time to do that, a little bit more of that too. So that'd be cool. Al Horford is going to Golden State. Is that a fact? Is that a fact? Jeez. It's a rumor. I mean, it makes sense. He's really towards the end of his career. Golden State is probably Gary Trent Jr. has signed. You know what's amazing? So Gary Trent Jr. is going to Milwaukee. He was probably their second best player in the playoffs. Did a really good job. He shoots really well. He's not a great defender, but he's still a better defender than RJ Barrett. I want to make it clear. They signed him to a 2-year, $7.5 million deal. Okay. Plus a player option. So I don't know if that means there's a player option on the third or a player option on the second. I'm assuming it's a player option on the second deal. If he plays out all 3 years of this, I want to make something clear. The Raptors paid Gary Trent Jr. $18 million a year. The Milwaukee Bucks will have paid Gary Trent Jr. $9 million to play basketball across 3 years. Brain explodes. Okay. This is actually a fair deal. This is a fair deal. This is a very fair deal. More than fair. Yeah. So that's where we're at, guys. We've been at this live for 2.5 hours to almost 3 hours, waiting to see if something would break. Nothing's breaking right now. Bobby Webster is probably going home to sleep. Dan Tolzman probably going home to sleep, or maybe they're going to work the phone till 12 and see maybe we can get Christian Koloko back here. I think we have an opportunity. I really do. And if the Lakers sign DeAndre Ayton, they don't really have an opportunity. So if I'm Rich Paul and there's some familiar ground here, he's already comfortable with Scottie, he's already got a good relationship here. This is the perfect homecoming. Bring the dude home. Let him be a 7-footer. Maybe bring him out in summer league. Let him work with Ulrich. What's the worst that could happen? Is you have a 7-footer on your roster as a 3rd-string center, and Scottie Barnes plays 2nd-string center. I don't know. It's not the worst thing in the world, man. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to talk to y'all later. Please like this video. And thank you once again to this community for getting us past 13,000. Once again, a reminder to y'all, I will not be on the panel this week. We'll see about next week, but I'm not going to be there for a bit. So it's some time for some soul searching and some time to make some content for this channel. So I'll catch y'all probably tomorrow if the Raptors do something. Definitely Wednesday if they don't. Okay. Have a great night. Enjoy.